Hello, hello, and welcome back to Friends on Film, the movie podcast where two friends sit and talk about their favorite things in the world, movies, television, and all that fun stuff in between. I'm Michael, and back with me, as always, is Ben. How you doing, my man?
I am so happy to be here because I love doing this with you, and there's so much to talk about, and we could just go on and on about how excited I am, but why don't we just go on about what's going on?
Oh, well, you have been down in the books. I've been doing a musical.
Yeah, how was that actually? I can't believe it. Yeah, I didn't ask about that.
It went so well.
Yeah.
It was a phenomenal experience. Loved working with that team. And yeah, I'm going to be doing more theater, hopefully. There is an audition for Julius Caesar by Shakespeare that I might be going for. That'd be fun. But yeah, I mean, you've been hitting the books, getting to study your
physical therapy stuff. Yeah, it's been a little bit rigorous here and there, and I just landed volunteer work, so now I'm feeling a whole lot better. But really, I'm all the more happy just to be here yet again because, well, movies are my life.
Yep, and I mean, it's been a while. We haven't done this since May when we talked the Disney live-action remakes, and there's been quite a bit that's happened. We are going to do a summer movie episode later, a little bit later on, where we can get more in depth. We had San Diego Comic-Con, which we'll find some time to talk about RDJ as Doom, because there's quite a bit to talk about,
and just a bunch of other stuff going on summer-wise, but we're back for Disney, and we got a lot of thoughts.
We got D23 just happened, and they had so many cool things they announced. There's a lot to talk about with Disney as a brand and what they're doing, what we agree with, what we don't agree with. However, we're going to go in with an open mind, and we do want to put out this disclaimer, though, that if we get upset or anything, or if we're talking about anything, we understand these are just movies. Yes. If they're good, that's going to be great for us. And if they're bad, it doesn't affect us either way.
Yeah. Look, if a movie's bad, yes, it is fun to get passionate about it and to roast it. Obviously, that's where a lot of the fun comes from. But it's, of course, also no fun to watch a bad movie. But bottom line, at the end of the day, it is a movie. It's art. If you like it, more power to you. And if you agree with us, great. If not, well, there's nothing wrong with that. We're just two guys talking about our opinions.
Yeah, it really does not affect us if these movies are bad or not.
Our opinions are not here to hurt you. We're just speaking into the void.
Yeah, and not just that, but like, if they're bad, who cares?
Yeah, who cares? Obla di obla da, life goes on.
Yeah, we have a life outside of film, and if you don't, well, it's literally in our jobs to be in it, But that being said, like, unless you are actively getting hurt by a movie or something is affecting you, then it being bad, i.e. like the Hobbit movies affecting the entirety of New Zealand and its economy, then that's another discussion. But this here, we're just going to be talking through D23. From Mashable.com, we got everything that they have announced. Yeah. And so it is time just to get on into it. Ben, what's our first thing that they've got here?
Right now, the first thing I'm looking at just off the website is Moana 2. It looked like it was in alphabetical order, but it doesn't matter. Moana 2. Moana, what? Well, Moana was great. The first one, I mean, Lin-Manuel Miranda's music, just the animation, the cast too, and how they brought in someone to play Moana who was... I'm not even going to say relatively unknown. She was unknown. Yeah. And just her whole adventure. Really the only weak aspect, and even when I say weak aspect, I don't mean it was bad. It was the villain, because we all knew who it was potentially going to be, and I'm not going to spoil it here if we haven't seen this movie yet. Now, that being said, the villain looked amazing still. Like, really amazing design. And The Rock, some of us may have our qualms with him.
You're talking about the first movie still,
The first movie, yes. Okay. I'm still talking about it. We may have our qualms with what The Rock's been up to as of recent, but let's just look at what he's doing in this movie. And what he's doing is pretty freaking hilarious and great. I mean, even I'm blanking on what they're called, those coconut Mad Max Waterworld creatures.
Yes.
I thought the sequence with them was funny. I could use a little more Pua in this sequel, though, given how he was almost
good news is they gave us a trailer.
Yeah, I saw it.
They gave us the official trailer. Pua is going to be in this movie more.
Yeah.
They even have The Rock... Well, they have Maui say, why didn't you just bring the pig the last time?
Exactly. Yeah.
But they also give Moana a little sister, which Bob Iger himself said that he was not expecting to be hit as emotionally by that as he was. Which is very sweet to hear from your CEO when he's like, that hit me pretty hard. And I trust Iger as a CEO. Sure, do I agree with his decisions a lot of time? No. Not really. But the guy does love his job, and I think he does love the company, and he does stand for what Walt Disney stood for in a lot of ways. So I put a little bit of trust in Iger. Not as much. I'm still going to be critical of him. But he is not a robot.
He is a businessman. obviously, not a robot, like you said. And, you know, businessmen will make decisions that don't please everybody every now and then. But the fact that he is on board with, I mean, like you just said, he just got hit so emotionally hard with the reveal of Moana's, not daughter, excuse me, sister. And actually, I even been like seeing the grandma return in the spirit. I
kind of wish they saved that for the movie itself. I feel like that's going to be a pretty big part.
Well, didn't they do that also in the last movie?
They did that in the last one, but I don't know if they were going to show it again for the second one.
That's a good point.
To show it in the sequel, I was like, I wish you had saved that.
Mm-hmm.
But the music's not being done by Lin-Manuel Miranda for this, which at first concerned me, but it's being done by Barlow and Bear, who did the unofficial Bridgerton musical. Now, there is a whole story about what happened with Netflix there, but they clearly have patched things over, considering that I believe Bear herself did a score for a Netflix movie after all of that went down. So clearly things have been fixed. They're writing the songs for this.
Okay.
And I know there's some concerns because this was going to be a TV show and then they turned it into a film.
Mm-hmm.
But the animation looks gorgeous. And
as per usual, it's Disney. Come on.
Well, and they also have a villain in this. Like they showed in the trailer this like black entity that's threatening Moana. And I'm here for another classic Disney villain.
Because we need those. Like, okay, I'm not saying, okay, once again, not to sway anyone's opinion of anything, but I'm getting so sick of the surprise reveal villain that isn't that much of a big surprise.
Mm-hmm. Or a villain like Magnifico that's like, yeah, I'm totally evil, get it? It's like,
yeah, come
what?
on, dude.
Yeah, like, I'm ready for the fun classic Disney villains to return, and heck, Moana had that technically with Tamatoa.
Somewhat, yeah.
He was very much a classic Disney villain. That's because Musker and Clements, when they directed the last one, they're like, we gotta have at least one in there.
Just one, yeah.
And,
Tamatoa, the giant crab, yeah.
Yeah.
Like, I guess he was that random villain that just kind of shows up out of nowhere, but hey, who cares? He's a villain who likes to do what he does.
He's fun, and Jermaine Clement killed it. I actually hope we do see him in the sequel. That'd be fun.
Shiny.
I also know the coconut people are back, but it looks like they're trying to partner with them.
Yes.
Which I love it. And yeah, for Moana 2, I'm excited for this November. It's gonna be fun.
Yeah, I'm
gonna be in theaters watching this. I don't care. I'll be surrounded by everyone else
who probably have their little kids who are gonna be screaming at every not scary thing, but I mean like every little thing that happens that's awesome. But come on, that's why we go to these Disney movies. I may be a little too
when we
busy,
saw Inside Out 2, how many kids were in that audience who were hooked?
Yeah.
So
both emotionally and just emotionally for all of it. Yeah.
Brilliant work. And so let's move on to the next thing.
Oof.
You've
got more of a connection to this one in an interesting format, which I will let him speak away.
So we're going to be talking about Snow White. For those who don't know, I wouldn't say I'm friends with Rachel Zegler, but we do know each other.
Yeah.
We both, back when I was in high school and she was in high school, we'd both be on the same Broadway Facebook group singing, and we'd talk about, well, you're awesome. And then now she's playing Snow White. And I gotta say, first of all, this is directed by Mark Webb. This is one of the ugliest looking Mark Webb trailers I've seen.
Yeah.
He's usually very good visually. The production design just doesn't feel magical. Gal Gadot as the evil queen feels big and grand.
She actually looks like she's having fun and just soaking up every bit of it because she probably watched the original. I was like, okay, I just gotta do that. Cool.
But it just doesn't really feel like Snow White. Like, no. I give credit to some of the live-action remakes, which we did a whole episode on.
Yeah.
A lot of them are good at capturing a tone and visual style that felt earned.
Yeah, even if it wasn't what we agreed with. Like, we had some opposing opinions about the Aladdin remake, but at the very least, you made it very clear there is a tone and a style that, it may not...
That feels like it connects to the original.
Yeah, and then even, as much as I hate to say this, Pinocchio had a tone, and it didn't work, but there was a tone.
Yeah, with Snow White, I'm not going to see this movie because I appreciate Rachel too much. I will say, to anyone who set death threats...
Come on, guys.
Come on. But did you hear her response to it?
Well, what did she say? Yeah.
When she said she was getting death threats, she said, well, I mean, I'm doing Romeo and Juliet on Broadway in a few weeks, so you'll be able to see me die 8 times a week this fall. What a plug.
What a great way to just say, hey, you want to see me dead? There, look what's coming up.
And I mean, we still got West Side Story. We still got Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. She's not going anywhere.
Yeah.
Rachel is an incredible person. I would say... If I were saying anything, like, of course, her doing Shakespeare on Broadway is great.
Yeah.
I'd love to see her in an A24 project.
Oh, yes. That would definitely...
I think seeing her, because she's done mostly big blockbuster stuff.
Blockbusters where she's very much the pretty wide-eyed individual, like with Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. Like it's like she's very much capturing her but her Broadway voice, and the same thing's going to happen with Snow White, of course. But it's like we know she can do more than that.
I don't even think she's a bad choice for Snow White.
No,
I think.
But her comment, well, I won't even say comments, but what we did hear, like, oh, she's going to be the powerful leader she's always been. And I'm not saying I'm against a reimagining of Snow White, but at the same time, I have to ask myself, was Snow White meant to be a leader or powerful leader?
I really think that it was just meant to be a fairy tale. And that's the hard part of trying to remake Snow White was... I think Disney captured it perfectly the first time around. Yeah,
but then you've also, I'm not saying that all Disney films should go through this, but they always tend to. There's always criticization for the not gender, gender norms and like how you portray women. It's like, but again, at the end of the day, guys, it's a fairy tale. If you look at some of the fairy tales that they're going off of, come on.
And I think for this film, what was disappointing about just the look of it and everything, because I don't mind heavily CG worlds, but look at how beautiful, vibrant, and fairy tale-esque in the storybook quality of the animation they went with in the original film.
Yeah.
And I really don't feel that in this trailer or in this style. And that's disappointing because I love Mark Webb. There's actually a show that I watched that he's directed called Why Women Kill.
Yes, I actually saw a little bit of that.
I watched the first 2 episodes recently. Yeah. And he's still an incredible visual director. Yeah. So... this was disappointing to see him from a visual standpoint.
And I know they didn't have any quote unquote, not quote unquote, I know they didn't have any little folks who came in to play the dwarves. I know but I was told they had to be replaced with CG. That's what I read.
Yeah, and they don't look visually good.
No.
They look really, it falls into the uncanny valley a little too much.
Video game-ish too, yeah.
And it's a shame. Because, and look, if you want to remake Snow White and do something strong, the thing is, this is the film that defines Disney. Like, not just as a culture, as a company, this is that
This was the first Disney movie, and...
First animated
movie, y'all. Here's the thing. Snow White, we know and love her today, but back then, this movie was make or break for Disney.
It really was. It was actually called Walt's Folly for a long, long time.
Yeah.
And I know we talked about Walt was like the producer on all the stuff and he didn't really direct the film.
Yeah, but he still had a hand.
Well, no, I argue he was the director. Like if you go on IMDb and you look at the credits for Original Snow White, there's 13 people credited as director.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, but Walt would sit with the storyboard team, he would fix it, he would work with it, and famously he would go through all the films and he would act it out. So while he credited himself as producer, let's be honest, Walt was the director. It was his vision, it was his guiding hand, and the people who were credited with the direction were the technical people.
True, yeah.
But they were achieving what Walt wanted, not what they were thinking as an artist.
Exactly.
And so, for me, this film is... it's a disappointment because it's what's supposed to represent the company as a whole.
Yeah.
And that's why I think people are disappointed with it.
Yeah.
And it doesn't look great.
It sounds like this is going to be to you what Pinocchio was to me.
I'm going to not let it be because I'm not going to see it.
Well, I mean, yeah, obviously you're not going to go see it, but I might see it and probably inform you of what happened if that's all right. But yeah.
Yeah, because I just think that going forward we need to be careful about, like you and I said, we don't want the live action remakes to end because the stuff that's good is really good. Like our A tiers were really good movies.
And the money and let's be real, if that's money like what you were saying with The Lion King, we didn't like that movie, but it still made a lot of money.
It gave us The Mandalorian.
That money went to The Mandalorian. And guess who? Okay, Jon Favreau made The Lion King, and then he made The Mandalorian. So there's a yin-yang that we can work with here.
Absolutely. But, let's move on from this remake to another one that's coming out.
Might be a little controversial still, I
Lilo
guess.
and Stitch, but they confirmed Chris Sanders is returning to voice Stitch.
Okay, there's that.
Oh, and the director of the film, I was reading, he is a Hawaiian native.
Okay.
And they've hired, Hawaiian native cast. They are really thinking hard about this. I don't remember.
They're probably going to do the Moana thing where they find people who are, I guess, most likely unknown, and mainly for Lilo.
I don't give credit. Looking at him here, Stitch is cute.
Yeah,
he is adorable looking.
I mean, I've seen when I heard this movie was being made, I did see the Yeah, he looks like Stitch. Yeah, very much from the original.
Like,
but when I saw like the Photoshop versions that made him look terrifying, yeah, there was a lot going in my mind. I was like, oh, how's he gonna look?
And turns out it's a very cute design.
Yeah,
my question really comes down to Jumba and Pleakley.
That's interesting.
All the aliens are gonna have questions on it, but this little design gives me a little bit of hope for the rest of it.
Mm-hmm.
I think I'll see this one.
I might too.
Because I like the original Lilo and Stitch, and I do think this movie does lend itself to live action pretty well.
It can explore, I'm not saying the first movie didn't do this well, but it can explore the sister dynamic maybe a little more because you got very much... Look, I'm going to be honest. Lilo is probably Disney's best kid character ever created because she acts like a real kid.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then you've also got Stitch, who, I mean, for those who don't know, okay, I don't know if Lilo, the name itself, is Polynesian or... Let me just put it this way. Lilo, the name, translates to lost. And then what you do when you stitch something, you put it back together. Mm-hmm. So we can explore a little bit of that whole lost family aspect, and then Stitch comes into their lives, puts them back together, but do it from maybe not a mature, but maybe a new, not setting, but just a new viewpoint.
Yeah, I think there's a lot you can do here, especially with live action being able to ground you a lot more.
Exactly.
I think this film, if it doesn't try to go cartoony, with this stuff.
There we go, yeah. Grounded, because the first movie, and it doesn't suffer at all because of this. It is an animated movie. It can be cartoony, but we're doing live action. We should try and, let it be live action. A little more live
I am curious how it's going to be with Stitch interacting in the world when they're, like, trying to make him interact like a puppy. Like, if they pull it off right, that's going to look so cute and so funny.
Yeah. It's kind of funny how Stitch is both terrifying and adorable at the same time.
Yeah, looking at this, it's like, man, I do want a plush of that.
I do want to pet him, but I'm also worried if I even put my hand near his head.
Yes. But let's get into Pixar, who is hitting a high with Inside Out 2 and is now, I mean, ironically, Disney's calling it the highest grossing animated movie of all time, despite the fact that Lion King 2019 is there. They're like ignoring that entirely.
That's amazing to me, but I'm okay with that
but
at the same time.
What we are seeing here is Incredibles 3.
This is going to be something interesting.
So I have hope, because Brad Bird is directing.
Yes.
And he's developing the movie again.
Mm-hmm.
And we also saw Incredibles 2, which we know got released
maybe a little too early.
Too early into it because Toy Story 4 ran into some problems.
Mm-hmm.
But if they age up the characters, like I say, Violet needs to be in college, Dash needs to go to high school, Jack in elementary school. Please let Bob and Elastigirl and Helen, please let them be older.
Yeah.
Like, I kind of got that feeling that they were parents in their mid-30s with them, so let them go into their 40s or even 50s if we're going that high.
Might as well go into the mid-50s at the
because Craig T. Nelson and Holly Hunter's voices...
They're already up there.
They're already up there. Their voices were clearly there. And it's a shame.
It wasn't James Earl Jones bad in The Lion King, but it's still noticeable.
It's still very noticeable, and I think they could go with that. I really want to see a villain that challenges them.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of like how Syndrome was the challenge of Bob and everything he stood for.
Yeah.
Because I didn't think that Evelyn in Incredibles 2 was a good foil to what they were doing.
Well,
like, on an external level, yes, that she was challenging it. I don't know on the internal or philosophical level.
Yeah,
because which is what Pixar's best villains do.
But she was also a surprise reveal villain, which I guess you could argue Syndrome in the first movie was too. But there was at least some more, like, I guess, build up, if not just like you could still put together. Oh, of course you would do that at the very end. It may not have been a surprise, but you'd be like, oh, okay, yeah.
Well, and my big thing is that the best Pixar villains. I was watching Michael Arndt's screenwriting video on writing Toy Story 3. Mm-hmm. And he said for Lotso, he has to be the antithesis. He has to challenge Woody externally, Woody internally, and then the philosophical debate of the movie.
Yeah.
And that, for me, is what I think the first Incredibles did so well, was Syndrome challenges externally. He's trying to kill off super so he can be one. Yeah. Internally, he's trying to show, I can be super like you without being born with it. But the philosophical argument of, do you hide your gifts and hide them away?
Mm-hmm.
And we see how it hurts and helps somebody.
He was almost,
and that's the challenge. And for Evelyn, I don't think she achieved that.
She did not achieve that.
She has the external conflict of, I want to stop supers because they're not right for our society. Internally, she's like, I want to stop the supers because they didn't come and save my family when it was needed and I need to grow up. But then philosophically, what is the argument that Incredibles 2 is trying to make for their existence?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's where the film kind of suffered.
Yeah, it just kind of like dove a little bit too much. It helps though that the family dynamic was still just as strong as in the first movie.
And really, that should have, I think, been Evelyn's thing, was try to find a way to separate the family, because we were focusing more on the family and the connection this time around.
Well, I feel like Brad Bird, every now and then he stumbles into this, like not even just the Incredibles movie, but even Ratatouille. I think he also, I don't know how much time he was given for the first movie, but every now and then he doesn't always balance out who gets the most focus. I'm not saying that his movies suck because of this, but when I watched the first Incredibles movie, it's very much Mr. Incredible's movie until the last half of the movie.
Yeah.
And then you watch the second Incredibles movie and it's balanced out a little better, but they're still trying to focus a little more on Elastigirl. But I still think he did it a lot better compared to the first movie. Now, there's got to be that whole, but the kids, I'm not going to say they got shafted or anything, but the kids didn't get the same attention that the parents did. So we can get that a little, hopefully more in the third movie, thankfully, if they age them up. But what would be, the internal, external philosophical conflict. Like, kids are now older
what
and
the
they're going
villain
to go...
needs to represent.
Yeah, and to be fair, we've got Violet going off to college. That's already a separation from the family right there. And then you've got Dash, who's already planning, maybe not planning on going to college, but maybe he's probably thinking about maybe he's a brash teenager who wants to just escape from his family's grip and see the world.
And Jack is...
He's a kid.
He's a kid, but he's seeing the family separate, and how does he deal with that as a child?
Yeah.
Like, there is arcs and stories you could take it, and then I think it'd be interesting if it was like two villains that kept the families away from one another.
That probably would help, actually, because now when you've got these heroes that are much bigger, well, a villain's only as good as the hero, but maybe two villains could help out, yeah.
And do we finally get to see Frozone's wife in this?
Oh,
because they were going to do it for Incredibles 2, but she got cut. But she was put in a background scene.
Oh.
But now it's like, nope, we need to see her.
See the wife. We need to see her. We need to see that banter.
We need to see that. And, I mean, Samuel L. Jackson still sounds the same.
He does, yeah. That guy...
That man doesn't age.
He does. I mean, the only time I could tell was, I guess, in the Captain Marvel movie when he had to run down a hallway. But everyone stumbles into that little hurdle every now and then.
Other than that, like, I think Incredibles 3 has the potential to be good.
Yeah,
I think there's some things here. So, yeah, Incredibles 3. And then we get into...
Well, this one's going to be really controversial for me.
Woo! Yeah. We're going to check out the teaser real quick. Editor Michael put in transition music.
Yeah.
So I was showing Ben this because he and I were talking about this on the way here about Toy Story 5.
Yeah.
And this is the first time it feels like Pixar is being forced to make a movie.
That could be seen as a pro and a con.
Yeah, like Pixar, this could be like their biggest detriment because it could be the worst thing that ever happened to them as a studio was getting bought by Disney.
Mm-hmm.
Or this is the chance just to make a really awesome film that shows Toy Story has lasting impact.
Yeah.
And originally I was like everybody else, no, I don't want this movie.
Yeah, I'm very much in that. I'm still, I guess, in that boat, yeah.
But as soon as they said Andrew Stanton is writing and directing, this is a guy who's been with the franchise since day one.
There is a little bit of leeway I'm giving you there. And keep going.
And I think the premise of it's toys versus technology.
How
do kids nowadays have to deal with it? Like iPad kids dealing with toys, and how do we deal with that?
It is kind of sad that I don't see too many kids nowadays playing with Legos.
And then we get into this idea that, of course, they're going to be fighting off an army of Buzz Lightyears. Which makes me think that it's going to be like a new remote-controlled Buzz that like the kids can play and interact with, and it's like a Terminator AI type of thing.
That would be funny.
I think that could really work. I am questioning how does Buzz get back to... Not Buzz. How does Woody get back to Bonnie? How does that play into his story? What's the arc, again, of what are they going with?
Because he's a lost toy now, I guess.
And he's chosen to be a lost toy. And I think there's a lot of interesting... Because Toy Story 4 ends with this idea that, hey, Woody is going to make a bunch of people happy. He doesn't need to make one person happy because he already did with Andy.
Mm-hmm.
And now as he goes along, as everybody comes along, he can still make people happy no matter where he lived.
Yeah.
And I think then here's this. Well, kids are no longer happy with toys. They've got this technology.
Because it's more visually stimulating for them.
So now it's the question of what does a toy's purpose do in the modern day? I think Toy Story 5 has given a reason to exist.
Yeah.
I think Andrew Stanton is the perfect person to touch on this.
Yeah.
Like anybody, I'm not happy that it was forced on them, that it's having to happen to to rebuild trust in Disney's brand.
Mm-hmm.
But that being said, this feels like a best case scenario for a very tough situation.
Because you have, like you just said, you have someone who's been with Toy Story since the very beginning. He was you said he was a producer or writer on the first movie.
Stanton wrote the first movie, then he
with
wrote
Joss Whedon, who
Joss Whedon. Well, he also wrote it with with Joel Cohen.
Yeah.
He also wrote it. He wrote it with a lot of people.
Yeah.
But then Stanton wrote and co-directed Toy Story 2.
Yeah.
Then, of course, wrote and directed Finding Nemo, which got him an Oscar,
Mm-hmm.
and even another Oscar nomination for Best Original Screenplay, which he repeated with WALL-E. And then, of course, he did Finding Dory. He did John Carter, and it's an alright film.
If that's his quote-unquote worst movie, and to be honest, yeah, the movie cost a lot and took a lot of money away from Disney. Okay,
Avengers came out the next year. They were fine. And he went and made Finding Dory, which is a really strong sequel. Like, it's a movie, the more I think about it, it gets better. And I'm like, hang on, that was actually really good.
Yeah. And
so for him to come back with this one, I'm like, okay. If anybody was going to... If they had to make a Toy Story 5, Stanton is a really solid choice. And I was showing Ben the teaser real quick, because I had told him, hey, there was a bit of an animation style change, and we just saw it. It's very much more fluid, but much more exaggerated expressions, which has me curious.
That is interesting, because it still looks subtly the same, from what I could gather from what we just saw.
Despite its story problems, Toy Story 4, I think, is one of the best looking Pixar movies.
Yes, I will give you that. My issue with Toy Story 4 was not... I'm not going to say it didn't justify its existence, because funny enough, it did. But it shouldn't have been called Toy Story 4. It should have been called Woody A Toy Story, because the movie was very, very heavily focused on Woody.
Yeah, and his story and his purpose, and I think that would have allowed Buzz to not have the little weird inner voice story.
I hated that.
I really think if they had cut that out and just let him be trying to go off and find Woody because that's his best friend, and he runs into Key and Peele, who are one of the best parts of Toy Story 4.
Him and Jesse, because he and Jesse are, romantically connected. That would have been fine, yeah.
I think if they fell off and they fell and ran to go find Woody, and then, then they ran into Key and Peele stuffed animal characters. Again, they are highlights.
Yeah.
The scene where they're trying to figure out how to break in and get the key from the old lady is so smartly done and smartly edited.
Yeah.
That I remember the first time I saw it, I had to pause the movie and cry laughing because it was so brilliant.
I also liked the brief, albeit hilarious, interaction they had with Duke Kaboom, voiced by Keanu Reeves. I mean, Keanu Reeves is just, man, that guy's just...
He was hilarious. Toy Story 4, the more I think about it, the stuff that doesn't work about it is just,
yeah.
But that's because the other three were so well put together that anything that's not good in this franchise feels a lot stinkier.
Yeah, and also Toy Story 3 was, let's be real, it was a goodbye. So when you have a fourth movie, it feels like kind of a slap in the face somewhat to that goodbye.
I could at least give it credit that they were clearly trying to make an epilogue to the story.
They were trying. Yeah.
You can, and with Toy Story 4, you really can take or leave it.
That's exactly.
It doesn't change. Yeah. It doesn't take away from what Toy Story 3 did so brilliantly.
Exactly.
So yeah, but for Toy Story 5, I'll see it when it comes out because I trust Andrew Stanton enough.
So I'm very much in the boat that I don't want this movie to exist, but if I hear good things, I'll give it a look.
Yep.
Yeah.
And heck, Inside Out 2 was really good, so maybe we got this.
Here comes the big one. One of the big ones. These are all big ones. What am I saying?
Crazy thing about this, they said Frozen 3 and they also said Frozen 4.
Really?
Which makes me think this is a part 1 and a part 2 situation. The story that Jennifer Lee and Pete
Docter?
Not Pete Docter.
Oh, okay.
Her co-directing partner, I'm drawing a blank. Jennifer Lee, who is the head of Walt Disney Animation, she wrote and directed Frozen and Frozen 2.
Yes.
And unfortunately Wish, but I'm not holding that against her. She also wrote Wreck-It Ralph, so...
There you go.
One Wish is not going to affect her filmography. Frozen 3 is... I like this. I love this idea for a film, and I know I'm always about taking time, but this movie is coming out in 2027.
Oh.
I read a comment online that where a girl said, "I'm 17. I'll be 20 when this movie comes out." That's a good point to make.
Yeah.
If you're 14 years old now, you'll be 18 when Frozen 3 comes out.
Exactly.
And that's where I have to say, I get taking your time. I get getting it ready, but I've even had concerns with Matt Reeves' The Batman Part 2 coming out as late as it is. You have to... I know that people are you got to make sure the story's good, sure, but you've got to strike while the iron's hot or your time is wasted.
Audience, yeah.
And I feel scared that that'll happen, especially because it looks... The concept art they released for this, I actually have a screenshot of it here. I'll show Ben real quick.
For sure, yeah.
the beautiful thing about this film from the trailer I saw from this teaser.
Did they give out any plot information out of curiosity?
They are keeping the plot under wraps.
Of course they are, yeah.
But if I have it still.
But I guess, like you said, in terms of taking time with things, I mean, that you told me when it comes to these Disney movies.
So in this concept art, Anna and Elsa are looking up at a castle that's crazy, but Olaf is looking behind them, and there is seemingly like a shadow of a Viking warrior.
Oh man,
standing behind them, which makes me go villain, villain, villain.
Yeah,
like I like Frozen with Hans fine. I think that was a fine villain.
That was actually a decent enough, I won't say, I guess, surprise reveal villain, but it still made sense to the overall story.
And Frozen 2 was impressive that they made a pretty strong film without a villain.
Yeah.
But Frozen lends itself to having some really cool villains.
Now they can't have a villain because, well, Anna is the queen of Arendelle, and Elsa is the queen of the forest, the wildlife altogether.
Because we know this world is so big and vast and apparently connects to Tangled, which if you've seen the series, you know there's more villains out there than just these villains. I really want to see a magical-based villain that Elsa can fight.
Yeah.
Also, if the Lopez's are returning to do the music, and if it's a big enough story that it can be fit into 2 movies.
Yeah.
And say 2027, 2028, you release part 1 and 2 with Frozen 3 and 4. And this is my just personal opinion. We know the directors of Tangled have been called back to talk. We don't know if they're working on an original project or not. But, hear me out. What if Frozen 3 and 4 is also a subtle Tangled sequel?
That would be interesting.
If Rapunzel and Flynn, like the show Rapunzel's Tangled Adventure, which if you have not seen it,
I haven't. Yeah,
it is brilliant. It is one of the best shows Disney has ever made, with a beautiful art style.
Yeah,
I really think if they, and I'm not saying that it needs to have Tangled characters in there. It can probably work fine on its own. But I really think if you can find a way to combine these two together, you'd create one of the coolest Disney princess concepts ever.
Yeah.
And I really do want that to be done well.
I guess what I was going to bring up earlier, what you were saying about like, taking time and everything. I mean, I actually personally didn't know this, so I feel like I should have. When it comes to these Disney animated movies, they don't just submit one script and then rewrite. You told me they submit like 5 different scripts that they go off of, and then they have to like decide which one is the strongest and which one they'll spend the most time on or something
no, what they do is they work on the script and then they'll show a test reel to a group of brain trusts.
Oh, okay.
And then with temp music, temp dialogue and everything, and they'll give story notes about what's working and what's not working.
Oh, okay.
And then they'll work on that until about a year up to the release, where then they'll hopefully lock the story in every few months or so.
Okay.
So like Frozen 2 apparently had like 4 or 5 drafts of just the movie done.
Okay, that's what you were probably telling me. There was like different drafts. Okay, not just 5 different scripts submitted. Okay, now that makes sense.
Yeah, and it's a very smart way because that was Pixar's process. It was the idea that Steve Jobs and John Lasseter came up with, as Steve Jobs described it. It was beta testing the movie. It's watching the movie and debugging it until you put it out for theatrical release. Yeah. And say what you will about Steve Jobs, that is a brilliant way to make a movie. Yes. And Michael Arndt has even gotten up on a little soapbox and said, there is no reason live action films cannot use this method.
That's true, yeah. I mean, yes, we have our test audiences, but there's only so much you can... But you're also submitting a movie almost before it's getting made to be watched by an audience, and then when you hear that the studio has to put an embargo on those reviews because I guess test audience reactions weren't so great, you know something's up.
Yeah, but the difference with what Disney and Pixar do, they sit it in front of the people who are making their films currently. So it's their writers and their directors. And for Pixar, they have a specific group of brain trust people. Yeah. Like for the last few years, like Michael Arndt hasn't written many screenplays because he was on that brain trust. Yes. And he was giving opinions and notes back. Yeah. And so for me as a person who loves creating, I actually have taken that brain trust idea as well, and I like to run with it and create just because it's different when you're in front of a test audience and you're hearing what executives are getting notes for. Yeah. Versus the creatives who are watching the film and saying, here's what I'm seeing. Yeah. And I really think companies like 20th Century Studios, if they took a group of people that are making their films, take a year to develop it, and every 3 or 4 months, show the film to that collective people. Exactly. Take a week where you all show the film, sit down and have a meeting about what you're seeing and what you're not working on. What Pixar does so brilliantly, Ed Catmull in his book Creativity Inc. talks about this. He says they sit down with the brain trust, they give suggestions about what's working, what isn't, and then but ultimately it is the writer and director who make the final decisions on what happens in the film.
Yeah, that sounds like it should be that's the collaborative process right there.
Yeah.
We may look at Disney as like, oh, it's controlled by focus groups. Well, no, this isn't a focus group. It's like you said, brain trust. These are people who have worked within the company and know what
Chapek was the one who really brought in the focus group testing.
And that did not turn out very well in the end.
And for even when Lasseter's fall from grace happened and everything, Ed Catmull was still the president of both Pixar and Disney Animation, and Iger was fully on board. Like, I think it's part of the reason I'm upset at Iger for forcing a lot of these sequels on, was when Frozen was such a big success, he was asked about a sequel, and he held up his hands and said, I will not force creativity. If they have an idea for Frozen 2, we'll do it. Otherwise, we'll let it be. Which is sad to hear, but I also have to acknowledge it's a different era. He's taking it up from Chapek, who ruined everything.
He made quite a big mess, and the worst part is he was the one who, appointed him, got him on board, and now he's got to clean up his mess.
And Iger has made a lot of difficult decisions that seem to go against what he had done before, but also he has the numbers we don't.
Yeah.
But either way, I think Frozen 3... I am anticipating it, though 2027, I'll be 29 when this movie comes out. I'm 26 right now.
God, I'm going to be 29 in the next week or so yeah.
Yeah, you'll be 33 by the time that movie comes out. So I have concerns about how long it'll take, but I'm hoping it can work.
The only way I could see this, I'm not saying like I'm gonna like force myself out to go see it. The only way I could see this, I guess, working in my favor and your favor too, is if we got married, if we had kids, and we grow them up with Frozen. That would be the best way. That would be the best segue for that. I was like, oh yeah, but that's
for the first one. That's as if we get married in the next year and have kids within the next year.
Which I don't plan on doing just yet.
Yeah, and I don't have the financial ability to do that
either. That's the only scenario I can draw up, and that's just it.
That or film critics reviewing the movie. So, but then we go into another film that actually kind of anticipating Zootopia 2.
I don't know much about this one because I really liked the first one, and I didn't want to go too much into knowing what's going to happen. But I've been reading up some stuff on this because we know Kei-Wei Kwan is going to be in it as a snake named Gary. Oh.
And one of the big things that was asked was, why was just mammals that we saw, predator and prey in the first one? What happened to the reptiles, the snakes, and everything?
Fish
and the director Byron Howard has said, who directed Zootopia, he also directed Encanto, and he's come back for Zootopia 2. He said, well, there was a reason. We just didn't reveal it in the first movie. And Zootopia 2 is going to be giving us the answer as to why. And this film is apparently set to come out next year, so
yay.
Okay. I am very curious. What are we going to be doing?
Well, when a director says, "Oh, we there's a reason we just didn't reveal it yet," they have a plan, man.
There is a plan. Yeah. It's very exciting. I love Kei-Wei Kwan.
Yeah,
he has been the best part of all the projects he's done in the last few years. So. For me, Zootopia 2, I remember when I saw the first one, it was the movie I didn't know I needed. It was so beautiful, so well done. Yeah,
and it was also a movie that we very much needed even at the time, too. With
the only thing about it was the twist villain wasn't all that great. Yeah. If that's the one flaw of the movie, otherwise Judy Hopps and Nick Wilde were fantastic characters and a wonderful duo.
I can't believe, I'm not saying this, I don't know if this was intentional, but I was impressed that a sheep wearing Breaking Bad hazmat gear was intimidating as it was.
The fact they got away with a Breaking Bad reference and it worked is amazing. The other thing that's over here is Elio coming out next year in 2025.
This is another intriguing one, but when has Pixar never been intriguing except for Lightyear?
And what we have here is a boy that gets captured by aliens and they think he is the leader of the universe, where his mom, played by Zoe Saldana, is shouting, "No, he's not!"
Oh.
This is going to be an interesting one. I can see it being how do we look at the world through a kid's eyes?
Yeah.
And how does he see conflict? How does he see this example? Does this alien world reveal?
It's like Flight of the Navigator almost, but with a couple more layers. Like if the ship came from a race of other ships.
Yeah.
If we saw the alien race behind them.
So I'm intrigued for Elio. I think it can do some really cool stuff. I think it has a chance to be really fun.
Yeah, and if people are gonna look, here's the thing: when it comes to log lines and specific plot details with Pixar movies, you read that as like he's kidnapped by aliens and they believe he's the leader of the universe or whatever. Okay, I can't count on my hand how many times we've probably seen that in other material, but the best thing about Pixar is that they can take a basic idea and really add great twists and turns to it. And it's their own spin. Like put it this way, Monsters Inc. A lot of people I've heard say, oh man, Monsters Inc. was such a great original idea, the first of its kind, and I have to come in and say, oh, hang on guys, Monsters Inc. is not the first movie to make a setting where monsters go and scare kids and then go back to their world. We had movies prior to that, Beetlejuice and Little Monsters. I'm not a big fan of Little Monsters, but Beetlejuice, I mean, that was Tim Burton's groove. But regardless, it was still Pixar's groove in that whole idea. Same with Inside Out. We've had ideas where they're like, what was that 50s show? Herman's Head. We've had ideas like that before. So again, this isn't to say they don't have any original ideas. They have great ideas, but they spin it around.
Absolutely. I think Elio has a huge chance.
Yes.
Speaking of chances, Star Wars needs one.
Star Wars needs one more than ever.
I will say, we were planning on talking about The Acolyte at some point. I will say I did not hate it as much as most people did, but that ending sucked. Hard.
Yeah, I didn't watch The Acolyte because I was too busy watching House of the Dragon.
Yep. Acolyte, I really liked what they were going for. I have some issues with it, and then that ending assassinates a character from the High Republic novels in such a bad way.
Oh no.
And also, it was worse for my brother, because that was his favorite character from the novels too.
Uh-oh.
And it ended, and he was furious. And so Acolyte, I think season 2 you can come back from it, because I think there's enough intriguing ideas and concepts
so it's salvageable.
Yeah. But I say salvageable if they get a chance.
Which it's I don't even know if it's 50-50. It's like...
it might not. But we did get the trailer for a show I've been anticipating from John Watts called Skeleton Crew.
Now, when you told me the premise to this, I actually was like, I don't know if that's something I want to see in Star Wars. But then I saw the trailer and I'm intrigued, actually, if I'm being honest. So you can bring
Skeleton Crew comes from John Watts, which the plot summary is just these 4 kids stuck in a galaxy far, far away are trying to get home, and they find a Jedi who's known as Jadna Nawad, played by Jude Law, who is one of my favorite actors of all time. And so I will be obligated by Jude Law to watch this movie.
And I'm
watch the show.
I'm actually intrigued too, because when I saw the beginning, at first I was like, really? Suburbia and Star Wars? That's like seeing the diner, the 50s diner in Attack of the Clones, because I thought that was a little... As a kid, I didn't think too much of it, but as an adult, you do start wondering, wait, so Star Wars has the 50s or at some point? But I don't want to think too hard about it, but when I look at Suburbia and Star Wars, that was a little weird, but then I had to remind myself, well, these kids are going to go on a little adventure far, far away that's going to be filled with a lot of dangerous obstacles. So the little Suburbia... maybe not midness, but suburbia standardization that they're used to, that's a good contrast to what they're going to be seeing later on. Yeah, so
I've heard it described as this is going to be like the Magic School Bus meets the Goonies.
Yeah.
But Jude Law said it was inspired by Steven Spielberg films like E.T. and Hook.
And
you feel that in every frame. But also, interestingly, one of the episodes is directed by the Daniels.
The guys who did
Everything Everywhere All at Once.
Yeah.
Which means, are we going to get a really weird, wild Star Wars episode that's going to have an emotional impact? Please. I love John Watts as a director.
Yeah, his Spider-Man trilogy.
His Spider-Man trilogy was really good. That film he's doing with George Clooney and Brad Pitt called Wolves.
And the clown movie he did, I thought was alright, yeah.
Yeah, I think what he can do with Star Wars is going to be interesting, and I've been wanting a Spielbergian take. This goes back into the New Republic era of the Mandoverse.
Yes.
So... that I think will be fun. I'm intrigued to see what they do with Jude Law. And I've heard rumors that apparently this takes place in the galaxy that Ahsoka is currently stuck in.
Mild spoiler for Ahsoka.
Yep, mild spoiler. Sorry about that.
Yeah.
But this is a show that I am very intrigued by.
Me too.
I think if done well, it's going to bring us back to what we love about Star Wars.
It can bring the Star Wars fever back and have it rise up for the next big Star Wars project. Yeah.
Yep. Acolyte, I think, was a show that was trying to be a little too self-important.
Yikes.
And they were trying to do some cool things. They did some intriguing stuff. I don't want to get too much into it, but Acolyte did a good job of being critical to the Jedi, but then they weren't very harsh on the Sith, which I feel like if you want to criticize the Jedi, that's fine, but you need to make it clear that the Sith are still the evil, worst. Yeah. Like, that was how George Lucas described it, was the Jedi are selfless, the Sith are selfish. and it's your own selfish desires that corrupts you and destroys you.
Yeah.
Now, the Acolyte does do some cool stuff by the dark side corrupting someone, and you see people who fall to the dark side.
Exactly.
And it's the first time they meet a Sith and you see a red lightsaber. That's terrifying. But but I think they are too easy on the Sith.
Uh-oh.
Because with the Jedi, they're very hypercritical in a good, strong way, but then a lot of the plot beats and a lot of they want to do don't happen organically. It feels like it happens because plot demands it. It's not a bad story or a bad concept, but the way they executed it,
it's almost
makes you go, wait, why did they make that decision? Why did they make that choice?
They're not being harsh enough on the Sith. That kind of reminds me. It's kind of like the trap almost that the Maleficent movie fell in. The first one, at least, where it's like, oh, she's evil, but is she really? It's like it's almost like what they're doing with the Sith. They're evil, but are they? But it's like, no, they are evil. Yeah, they're supposed to be.
They are the embodiment of everything wrong with a person when you are corrupted.
That's the only, if that's the one Disney note or whatever, Kathleen Kennedy note, whatever note was given, then that is an issue. When it comes to me in Star Wars and like the other issues, whatever people say, like, oh, it's woke propaganda or whatever, I'm just going to be honest, y'all. I don't pay attention to that stuff. You want to know why? I don't look for it. I don't care enough. I just want to see if the show's good.
Oh, we talked about that in what we like and don't like about modern criticism. If you put it into that one word, if you try to put it into that one thing, it doesn't work.
Yeah, it really doesn't work.
Your critiques of the show need to be more well thought out than just saying it's woke, because let's be honest, not many people actually know what that means.
Yeah, exactly.
And going into Marvel,
oh boy,
we're getting into a title that I don't know if they were constantly changing the title and then this was always their plan or if it just was a happy coincidence.
Yeah.
But it's been Agatha all along. A Halloween style show, which they've also confirmed, though the trailers don't show this, it's a musical.
Interesting. So
we have this musical show starring Kathryn Hahn, who's one of my favorite performers. Yeah. We also have Aubrey Plaza. I will always there. Joe Locke is here, and then Broadway legend Patti LuPone is playing a witch in the Marvel Universe.
Oh boy.
They even at D23 performed the song The Ballad of the Witch's Road. And it was very creepy and very cool. We know that this is going to be running in September to all the way through October.
I guess that helps.
So this is a Halloween-style special for Marvel where we're following Agatha Harkness, who in the comics is a very intriguing character.
I wouldn't know too much about that because, well, if you look at my shelf right here, there's more DC stuff than Marvel. Yeah.
But yeah, with Agatha Harkness, she's always been self-serving. It's always about what she desires and what she fulfills. I think Kathryn Hahn gave us one of the most traditional Disney villains in WandaVision with her performance.
I'll be honest, she was very much the highlight for me, next to Paul Bettany and Elizabeth Olsen's acting. Yeah.
No, they all three got Emmy nominations for a reason.
That's great, yeah.
And I mean, Agatha all along the song won the Emmy for Best Original Song. And beat Justin Bieber in the charts. So,
thank God.
And I have no problem with Marvel making a musical.
No, me neither.
I'm curious about that, especially if it's a Halloween special.
Yeah.
And Kathryn Hahn is a great performer. If you're going to do something very intriguing with these villains, with a character who's not even an anti-hero, she is a villain,
just
but
a very
self-serving person. But then there are people worse than her wanting her down.
Is that the premise of the series? She's going up against all these other people who are just as bad as she is.
All it says is Han will follow Han in the aftermath of WandaVision, having to face a magical gauntlet of trials along the witch's road as she seeks to gain her powers back.
Interesting.
So we're going to dive more into the magical side of Marvel, aka the dark arts, the witchcraft that the Sorcerer Supreme and everybody were freaked out about. Which I think was one of the cooler things about it when they did in Multiverse of Madness, where they're like, yeah, no, that witchcraft is very different from what we do, and we're scared of that.
Yeah, that's for all Multiverse of Madnesses, I guess, quirks that didn't always work. The one thing I will always give it props for, it was made like a horror movie, and it helped give it more of an identity compared to a lot of the other stuff that were going on in Phase 4. So if we're getting a Halloween-based musical, that's cool. At least it's giving itself a different kind of identity.
Yep. And Agatha going through a trial of stuff, it'll be interesting. My one hope is they don't do a stupid flashback episode right before the finale again.
Oh.
Like, even the Acolyte fell into that trap.
Oh, no.
There's, like, the flashback of, like, okay, we're going to reveal everything to you before the finale. It's like, The only reason that worked in WandaVision was because it kept the story moving.
Exactly. And it was also just showing, again, because Agatha was there all along, it fit the music.
And the whole thing was like, what about Wanda's past is making her do all this? Why is this happening? And then it organically flowed into that episode. Exactly. I think every other show that's tried to do it, it didn't work because it wasn't an organic story. And so that's my hope with Agatha, that they can keep it going. But we're going to move from this WandaVision spin-off project to the guy who directed WandaVision with the Fantastic Four First Steps.
I feel like with this Fantastic Four, here's the thing. I feel like in terms of how I feel about Fantastic Four in general, that could be an episode in of itself. So here's what I'm going to say. Yes, I grew up with those 2005, 2007 movies. I'm not the biggest fan, but I understand why some of us are huge fans of them. I personally think the one that was never released, the Roger Corman movie, for those who don't know, Roger Corman, a B-movie producer, made a Fantastic Four movie to secure the rights and never released it, which was a very move on his behalf. But regardless...
He was planning to release it, but when Avi Arad just gave him a bunch of money to not release it...
Yeah, it was Avi Arad, yeah. But still... huge move just to like make this movie, not release it, have all those people work on this movie. I'm getting a little sidetracked, but yeah, I think that version's good. It's on YouTube. Give it a look. It's obvious. Okay, it's a B movie though, so don't expect anything like what you see today. And then Fan4stick. Well, here's what I'm going to say, and I'll keep it short. Yeah, when again, not the biggest fan of Fantastic Four, but at the time of that movie's release, we had other good superhero movies. Case in point, I guess the second Avengers and Ant-Man. So we were in a golden age. Still are, I guess. And then when I hear about Fantastic Four, Fan4stick's reviews, everyone was just trashing it, saying, oh man, this sucks, blah, blah, blah. My response was, oh, come on, guys. How bad can it be? Surely they did something better than I saw the movie for myself. And I have not seen it ever since for reasons we may discuss in another episode.
I might actually have to sit down and just rewatch Fan4stick. I will say it was impressive with the little reel they showed in Deadpool and Wolverine. How it's like, why am I getting teared up at seeing Fan4stick behind the scenes footage?
Oh man,
that tribute to all the Fox movies was so sweet.
Yeah, that was the best highlight.
I will say I'm unlike Ben. I don't like Fan4stick as much as like anyone else. It's not good.
But for different reasons.
And I don't like the Roger Corman one just because I think it's special because it never got released. I think it's just compared to that, a couple years later, Blade would come out and X-Men would come out. It was like, come on. And Spider-Man would come out then.
Spider-Man was an explosion, yeah.
That was... And so, for me, it's... that for Fantastic Four, I like the original two because I watched them a lot as kids.
Yeah. I
like the Fantastic Four. I liked Rise of the Silver Surfer. I really like the extended cut of Fantastic Four.
The first one?
The first one.
I don't know if I saw it. If I'm being
the one
honest,
I will agree with everyone. Doom wasn't great. Galactus sucked, but they nailed the family dynamic.
I'll give them that much. At least in those movies, they feel like more of a family, and unlike the Fan4stick one, where it's like they're just co-workers who just came across an accident.
Yeah, the casting of those movies was brilliant. Like, Ian Grafad was Reed Richards.
Yeah.
Angelina, and for...
Jessica Alba.
Thank you. Jessica Alba, like, she looks like Sue Storm, and when she did the science stuff, I believed her. I was like, yeah, I believe you.
Well, that's because she was a pretty face to look at, so
yeah,
of course
she was.
You believed her.
And then Michael Chiklis does not get enough credit.
Well, Stan Lee even confirmed, I don't know if his opinion changed before he died, but he even said that was his favorite performance of any Marvel character ever portrayed.
Oh, yeah. And then the fact that the thing was a practical effect.
I'll give the movie that much credit. Yeah, they could have gone CG, but Chiklis was actually, I believe, a diehard comics, Fantastic Four comic fan, and he was like, no, we need to do this right. Put me in a suit. I don't care if it's 60 pounds.
And Chris Evans was so perfect as Johnny.
Yeah.
Like, that character can easily be annoying, but Chris Evans toed the line so perfectly with that character.
Yeah.
And it did lead to some of the funniest moments of the film that I think deserve more credit. And sure, Rise of the Silver Surfer, Galactus sucked, but Silver Surfer with Doug Jones and Lawrence Fishburne's combined performance, that is a heart-wrenching performance. It is, I think the reason to watch the movie is for Silver Surfer.
Yeah, and he's got some decent effects on him too also.
And I will defend that the first movie... as much as I don't like how Doom is portrayed, he's just Norman Osborn. He's just Green Goblin.
Well, he's not even Norman Osborn. He's like discount Norman Osborn.
I still think that final fight where he individually slowly is taking down each member until they all come together to stop him in a cool way. That does feel like
Doom, yeah.
But the thing in him fighting across New York City, fighting around, and I love the way he punches down the door. He just looks at Doom. Doom looks at him. He just goes, "It's clobbering time," and then a fight across the city that's actually well shot, well executed.
And it's at night also.
At night, and it's beautifully done. And then the way they all come together, and you feel that there is a chance they could die if they don't defeat this dude.
I got that a little bit more in Silver Surfer, I guess. But for me with those movies, and again, this isn't to trash anyone's opinion, but to me those movies felt like, I guess, a blank stage superhero movie, like where things just happen because the script demands it, and the characters don't get too much time to shine, but you're right, the family dynamic does shine for those movies, but I feel like we're also detracting for what we should be talking about.
We should. I will say, my last thing on my defense of those movies is the reason they are seen as mid, because they're kind of a mid B-tier film. Yeah. Because that was the same year Dark Knight and Spider-Man 2 came out, which are two of the best comic book movies ever made.
It also didn't help that we also got The Incredibles around the same time.
Exactly.
So.
But going into the Fantastic Four First Steps.
This one actually, even though, okay, look, this is going to be our, believe it or not, 5th attempt. If you don't want to count Roger Corman, then 4th. This is going to be our 5th attempt at a Fantastic Four movie. And so it's not just a case of you better be good. It's like, you got to knock our socks off.
Yep, I think the cast, Pedro Pascal, Vanessa Kirby, Eben Moss-Bachrach, and Joseph Quinn are great choices.
Yeah. But it's in a different universe.
It's in a different universe. The sizzle reel that got leaked at San Diego Comic-Con. This movie, I love its visual style.
I didn't see the sizzle reel,
It's very much 60s inspired. Like, they're clearly in the 60s. Yeah. It's got some Wes Anderson vibes to it in some beautiful ways. And Galactus looks terrifying. There's a shot of him looking into the Baxter building. Oh. And just this giant eyes just looking through the windows.
Oh, and yeah, the man who's playing Galactus. What was his name? Ralph Ensign, I believe that's his name?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, Ralph Ensign.
Okay, if y'all have not seen this guy's work, The Witch and The Green Knight, listen to that dude's voice. If that dude doesn't sound like he could be a world-devouring celestial, then please tell me someone else who would be.
At D23... they also played a bit of Michael Giacchino's score.
Oh, he's going to be doing the composition?
He's doing the score, and they released some of that bit of score. I'll have to play it for you after.
Of course, yeah.
Oh my goodness. I am a huge Michael Giacchino fan. I love his work as a score writer. I'm excited to see what he's going to do as a director, especially after seeing Werewolf by Night.
I forgot he directed, yeah.
But the score for it is so 60s inspired, but there's that feeling of fear underneath it. And... I've liked Matt Shakman as a director for television for a long time. He's clearly diverse. This is his first foray into film. Well, but just from that sizzle reel, the fact that he had a sizzle reel of just this is what the movie's gonna look like. Yeah. And as time has gone along, after seeing that sizzle reel, I'm like, yep, Pedro Pascal is Reed. Yeah. That feels right. Vanessa Kirby, I mean, it's that pretty face, but you do believe this woman is smarter than she looks. Mm-hmm. Joseph Quinn, I wasn't a Stranger Things guy, but the stuff I have seen Quinn in, I'm like, yeah, that's Johnny. Yeah. And Eben Moss-Bachrach, he is a Jewish actor with a really, I think is going to do some powerful, beautiful things. Yeah. And I mean, I think in this film, at least in the post-credit scene, we will see RDJ as Doom.
Doom, yeah.
And I can be honest, like, even just taking away the Tony Stark aspect, Robert Downey Jr., we saw how he played a very similar type in Oppenheimer. Yes. As somebody who believed he was stronger than he was and was willing to take anybody down because of it. Yeah. Him going up against Pedro Pascal? Yeah. That is going to be ultra terrifying.
And we've got our theories as to how he's going to fit in with the other Avengers movie, because I believe one of the movies is going to, the next Avengers movie is going to be called Doomsday.
It's Doomsday and Secret Wars.
So with a title called Doomsday, I mean, come on, that means we're going to see Dr. Doom. But I mean, we've also got some theories as to how he's going to figure into this, because this is going to be in another universe. But I'm not going to go into that because that would involve me having to talk a little bit about Deadpool Wolverine. What I'm intrigued about is this is also going to be a space exploration movie. Yes. And the thing is, we do get Marvel space movies, case in point, Guardians of the Galaxy, and I guess a little bit of that in Captain Marvel's 1 and 2, right? Yeah. But this is going to be like straight up exploration, which is something like, look, some of us may or may not like those first films. Thanos, they did go into space, but there wasn't that much exploration. It was just an accident that happened in Fantastic. That's something else. Mm-hmm. So this will be intriguing because that's what they were always doing.
What's also intriguing was James Gunn really built everything space in the Marvel Universe. Yes. Anytime they've gone into space since then, it's just been piggybacking off what James Gunn had did.
Yeah.
And so this one, they have the chance to really expand the space in a beautiful way. We know that originally 2 comedy writers were writing this film, but then they left. They're still credited, but they got the writer of Avatar: The Way of Water to write this film. So it's clear they want to take it more seriously. And honestly, Way of Water's writer, he did a great job with the family dynamic.
I don't know if I've got a different opinion because I feel like, well, maybe it's because I'm older and I've seen more movies. I was able to see a couple things that were going to happen a mile away. So we'll see if he's able to really flash his chops a little better because with Avatar: The Way of Water, that movie did recycle quite a bit. But then again, James Cameron's an environmentalist, so, you know.
Yeah, but what I think is... That was a good joke. I have to acknowledge that. Yeah. But I do think he got that the way he wrote the family dynamic in Way of Water was very believable and very honest.
It was. It just...
And I think that's why Kevin Feige said, that's the guy I need.
It was believable, but I don't think there was enough time, despite the fact that the movie was 3 hours, because the movie does focus more on one of the kiddos in comparison to some of the others. And we don't get enough time with Jake and Neytiri.
Yeah.
But... I guess speaking of avatars, didn't they reveal an Avatar 3 sizzle reel at any point?
They did. We'll get into that.
Okay. I thought that was the next one.
Just one last thing for this film. We know Silver Surfer's lover, Shia LaBeouf, is Silver Surfer in this movie, played by Julia Garner.
Ooh,
which is a really intriguing idea. Ralph Ineson, of course, is Galactus.
Yeah,
and
that dude
Paul Walter Hauser, Natasha Lyonne, and John Malkovich will co-star in undisclosed roles.
Oh, Malkovich.
If Malkovich is not the Mole Man, I will riot.
Yeah, the Mole Man would
or Paul Walter Hauser could also be the Mole Man.
Who knows? Yeah, we'll have
There's so many other Fantastic Four villains we need to get there, because everyone's like, Doom, Galactus, what else? The Skrulls. Yeah. It's like, there were other villains, right?
Yeah, just because the Mole Man may sound like something 60s and silly doesn't mean it can't be cool.
Oh yeah, and it's the 60s, so we're going in there.
Yeah, we're gonna do that, yeah.
And yeah, I'm excited for this. And here's one that I think you're gonna be a little more into than I am, just because I haven't seen the full show.
Oh boy.
Daredevil Born Again.
This show is really cool for me because my mom, she's not the biggest Marvel person, but this was the show we watched together. We watched season 1, season 2. We watched some of the other shows. We didn't watch season 2 to Iron Fist because we actually agreed Iron Fist was not very good. But we did see The Defenders, and Mom really loves Jessica Jones more, but she does agree Daredevil is, I guess, the better show, but it's all, we've all got our opinions. Daredevil Born Again is going to be so nice to see. I got to reread the comic because, got it all right here.
I will say for this one, this show got reworked from the ground up after the strikes because they had written it and they were filming it, and then it stopped due to the writers and actor strike.
Yeah.
But then upon reviewing the footage while they were waiting...
They didn't like it. Yeah.
Well, apparently Foggy and Karen weren't even in the show. In fact, they were going to be killed off screen. Daredevil wasn't going to suit up until episode 4, and Kingpin was already going to be mayor, which they set up him going to be running for mayor in Echo at the end of Echo.
I never saw Echo.
Echo's worth watching. I really liked it.
Okay.
It's really fun. But with this one, though, they said, okay, we're restarting. They fired all the writers. They fired everyone and restarted.
That's a big risk, but,
But everything we've seen, the sizzle reel that they released for this one, top tier.
Yeah.
Everyone's back, of course. Charlie Cox and Vincent D'Onofrio are here.
Yes.
But then Karen and Foggy are here, played by Deborah Ann Wolfe and Eldon Henson. And we also know that John Bernthal's Punisher is back. And he said he would not return unless it was R-rated. Well, so here he is.
This is Feige saying, okay, here, look, I got to make Deadpool Wolverine. Surely I can do something with
Wilson Bethel is back as Bullseye.
Yes.
And they said that we got our first look at the costume vigilante, White Tiger.
Ooh, boy.
And I will say I haven't seen all of Daredevil just because I'm at a point in my life where it's a very tense show. And it's so intense to the point I'm like, I don't know if I can watch this personally, because it gets to a point that's so tense, and I'm watching Breaking Bad right now, and that's enough. That's enough intensity.
That's not something to balance out the tension with. Yeah, that's.
And I will say, from the clips and the episodes I have seen of Daredevil, it is a brilliant show. I love the bite it has. Feels like it was earned, and
Drew
the
Goddard
world they said
really drew from the Man Without Fear for that first season. It gets a little out of hand in season 2 when they start involving the Hand and the Punisher and like all these other plot threads, but it's not as crowded. It's just a little crazy, I guess.
The scene where like it's Punisher's first arc,
yes,
and he has that whole monologue as he's just sitting by the grave.
That was a great,
The fact that they just hold the camera on Jon Bernthal, no cuts. He just does the monologue. And he just rips your heart out after seeing him being this intense guy. And we also know, this makes me so happy, there's going to be 12 episodes of Daredevil Born Again. Finally, we're out of the 8-episode trap. Give me long 12 episodes. If these are 45 minutes each too,
that's fine.
Give me that. And we know in the trailer that they said it's Kingpin and Daredevil talking, and he says, "You and I both share a common enemy." They're not saying who, but there is somebody so horrible that both
Daredevil and Kingpin have to work together.
That's what's scary.
That's scary, yeah.
Because, Kingpin is one of the great villains.
Vincent D'Onofrio's portrayal of the Kingpin is amazing. We've got other ones like
Michael Clark
Duncan. He was fine.
He was the best part of it.
Both him and Colin Farrell were
I personally disagree. I did not like Colin Farrell as well as I.
And then we also have Liev Schreiber in the Spider-Verse, the first one, and he's okay.
He is very strong, and I think they gave him enough of a intriguing villain arc to keep him.
But he did make for a fun villain to fight in the beginning of the first Spider-Man.
But Drew Goddard and D'Onofrio just built this complex character that you have no doubt is the most evil man alive.
The episode, if you really want a good idea of just how great this villain is in the series, there's an episode where we don't get a lot of his backstory, but we get just enough to know why this dude is the way he is and where he got his violent tendencies and everything.
And the way that he and Daredevil both have the same violent tendencies and the way they use it.
Yeah.
It shows you why Matt Murdock and the Kingpin are two of the great villains, hero and villains, because there's such a tense intensity there.
Yeah.
And I am very, very, very intrigued to see what they can do with Daredevil Born Again.
Yeah, me too.
If they can succeed, Marvel will have another chance.
Yeah. My one smallish request, this has nothing to do with me hating the show or anything, this would just break it a little bit for me. Please don't bring back She-Hulk into this universe.
We know they're dating.
I know they're dating, but it's like, we don't need to see She-Hulk in this show.
I would be okay if it was just like a phone call with Jen. Or if we just see Jen Walters, we don't need to see She-Hulk. If it's just Jen talking with him.
Because my one issue with, when I heard Daredevil was going to be in She-Hulk, I was like, okay, this could be interesting. And my friends were hyping me up saying, yeah, when Daredevil comes in, he's like Marvel's Batman and blah, blah, blah. And then I see the episode and I see them like having lunch, not lunch, but they're sitting on top of a roof. I'm like, Marvel's Batman, huh? And then...
At least Charlie Cox plays it so perfectly.
At least he does, yeah. But thank God we've also got we got the Daredevil show, and then we're getting this to remind us how he's Marvel's Batman too. Yeah.
And we're moving now away from Marvel a bit into something that's I think we're gonna be divided on a little bit.
Yeah, just
Avatar 3, Fire and Ash.
Okay, so this one, actually, I can say this could make or break it for me, because I'll just say this about the first 2 Avatar movies. I really liked the first one back when it came out. I would gush about it all the time. Then I got older. Then I started to realize some of the stuff that they were saying wasn't that deep or complex. But to be fair, it's not talking down. It's just saying it in a manner I've already seen done before.
Yeah.
And to be fair, the finale to that movie is amazing. Like, it doesn't even look like a video game on my PS5. It looks like a movie, like a legit movie. Then we get The Way of Water. Here's what I will say about The Way of Water. I will say it is impressive what Cameron was able to accomplish shooting on the water. Because if you were to ask anyone in Hollywood, maybe Spielberg, if you were to ask what is your advice when it comes to filming on water, Spielberg would probably say, my best advice is to not do it. Yeah, don't do it. Cameron would give you like a whole bunch of details on what to do and what to look out for. And he even got back Kate Winslet, who said she wouldn't want to work on a project like that after working on Titanic and almost drowning on set.
And now she beat Tom Cruise's record for holding her breath the longest in a movie for a scene.
I will give Avatar: The Way of Water on a technical level. What they were able to accomplish was great, but the story just didn't exactly hit the emotional beats, with the exception of the sun and the whale stuff. I will say that, yeah.
Yeah, that connected really beautifully.
I thought that was fine. Even the cinematography with him and the whale, like that one scene where he's like holding the whale's fin like they're holding hands. I actually really liked that shot. And without mildish spoiler, with the first Avatar, I could see quite a bit of what was coming. It was a lie revealed story, and those are stories that can be very hit and miss.
Yeah.
But with Avatar: The Way of Water, it wasn't so much lie revealed. It was just like, okay, I know what's going to happen here. But I could not have predicted the sun going inside the whale's mouth, looking at the beautiful, gorgeous inside of this beast. I was like, wow, you made the belly of a beast beautiful. How'd you do that? And then connecting their little memory things towards each other in a specific manner.
Giving you a few moments to skip ahead for spoilers. I was not expecting the sun to die.
Oh, yeah.
And them to actually be intrigued with it. I also will... Spoilers done. I also will say I love the final battle of the movie.
I like the final battle fine.
Like the way that it goes from the water onto the ship, below the ship. Oh, the ship is sinking now. The way that they're still going.
That actually is cool. My one small technical problem is what happened to the rest of the army?
Yeah, no, I can't even defend that. I don't know what happened. But I will also say they made the villain much more intriguing.
Yeah, actually, I'll give the second one this. Yeah.
The way that he is a copy, he has the memories of everything that he was, but
he's in the body of something that he hates.
And then he crushes his own remains of skull, and even sits down with Spider, who I think was an interesting character too, and he says, "Look, I am your dad technically, but I'm not
that guy." That's literally how he says it.
Yeah, he doesn't see himself as that guy. He literally thinks of himself in a different way. Mm-hmm. He's still angry at Jake Sully. It's interesting. He has the memories. He knows his motivations as to why he's doing it. But he's dealing with his own stuff. And that, for me, is the most... it's an intriguing villain.
Yeah.
What are they going to do with the third movie with Fire and Ash?
Well, we're going to get Fire Na'vi with red skin, and that was my smallish issue with the water folks. Like, they don't look that much different from the tree folks. They're just light blue, and their tails look like fins.
We're confirmed it's coming out next year, though. Christmas of next year.
Oh boy.
Which is faster than Avatar 2 came to us.
Well, to be fair, he probably shot
he shot two and three at the same time, and the first 20 minutes of 4.
Oh wow, the first 20 minutes.
Well, because he says the first 20 minutes of 4 they're still kids, but then it jumps ahead and then they become adults. And he said that was an intentional choice. You'll see why if we get to Avatar 4. And I will say,
but Cameron's also
Avatar.
Up there, yeah.
Avatar is one of those you don't talk about when, like, all the time. You don't see it when it comes out and everything.
Yeah.
But when you watch the movies, it's like, oh, I remember the lore. Yeah, I remember these characters. Yeah, I remember the story.
Yeah.
Like, and I don't mind that. I think that's actually kind of cool. Of like, it's not something the general populace talks about, but they all go to see it knowing it.
And they're immersed at the very least. I will say this, for all the faults I have story-wise, I am immersed somewhat in that world. I will say that. Yeah.
And I like the characters enough that I want to see what are they going to do with
Jake Sully, I don't really care too much about, but thankfully Sam Worthington would come out in Call of Duty Black Ops and actually show me, oh, the guy can act. But Zoe Saldana made the movie for
Neytiri is intriguing as all get out.
And the kids, as stock as they were, I'm not saying that in a bad way. I mean, like, stock in that, oh yeah, this is the older brother who likes to be in charge. This is the little girl who's cute and every now and then finds herself in trouble. This is
the bratty
teenage son who gets into trouble too. And the only slight exception was, oh, this is the immaculate birth child. Okay.
Yeah. And I think there's a lot of interesting things that we're going to be seeing and being played with over the next few years.
It's going to be nice to see a volcanic setting too, if I'm being honest.
Cameron did show the attendees concept art showing Ash people of the Na'vi and their otherworldly masks, taking clear inspiration from traditional Native American ghost dances.
That would be awesome. And if I gotta be honest, it hasn't been a long time, but it's been a long time since I was 10 years old and I saw Revenge of the Sith in theaters, and that Mustafar battle battle sequence still blows my mind. Okay, Cameron, you've got some shoes to fill.
He does, and I am intrigued. I will say I like Avatar fine enough that I will see Avatar 3 in theaters, and I'm okay with them grossing over $1 billion because they're original stories
at the very least,
with beautiful world building, with good enough characters that I'm intrigued. And heck, the last two had great final battle sequences, and you don't bet against James Cameron.
Yeah. I'm trying to really find my inner Scorsese when I say, oh, it's like a giant theme park ride. But for me, it's just because I know these kind of stories to death from growing up. But if I'm with the right people, if I'm in the right... I'm not saying I want to be intoxicated, but if I'm with the right people and if I'm in the right mindset, I can enjoy it enough. I'll say that, yeah.
Well, finally moving on from Avatar, which took us a bit because we had... surprisingly had a lot to say about it.
Yeah, that's funny enough.
I don't think we'll have a lot to talk about. Freaky Friday 2 is called Freakier Friday with Lindsay Lohan, who I'm happy is back, and Jamie Lee Curtis, who is an Oscar winner.
She's great, yeah.
And Manny Jacinto from The Acolyte plays the husband, and to be fair, I saw him in The Good Place as, of course, Jason, where he's funny.
Yeah.
He is the best part of The Acolyte. He is intimidating as all get out and terrifying.
Oh, so he's the villain in the
He's the villain, but he is terrifying.
Is he the one wearing that mask with the jaw on it?
Yes. Yeah. And he is scary in it. But he's also, you understand everything he's doing and why he does what he does. Mm-hmm. He's a brilliant villain. That's the reason to watch The Acolyte. Manny Jacinto's performance is terrifying. But is he going to
be the villain here, or is he just another
He's just saying that he's a new husband.
Oh.
And also Mark Hamill, Chad Michael Murray is in this, Stephen Tobolowsky. There's a bunch of people. I'll say I like the original Freaky Friday. I saw it as a kid.
Fine, yeah.
It's a cool concept. The musical was surprisingly effective, but
I never saw the original though. But from what I was told, my folks didn't see it, but I saw like a trailer with my folks and we were like, well, let's give it a look. And then we're like, this looks like it's a product of the time. Or it's just like, oh, the daughter has to be the stay-at-home mom. It's like, we don't need to see that.
Yeah, there's an intriguing thing here. Like, again, it's an intriguing concept. A mom and a daughter who are having issues switch places. Yeah. And they have to hurry and figure out one another before they get trapped.
Permanently trapped, yeah.
And that's an intriguing concept. That's an intriguing
for the
story.
First time, yeah. With this one...
Freakier Friday, too. Freakier Friday.
When I hear that title, okay, do you watch South Park?
A little bit, yeah.
So there was an episode where, I don't remember specifically which one it was. Oh wait, okay, I think I remember. It's the one where Stan learns he has Asperger's or whatever, and then like he's being told of a movie to go see, and this was back when the Kevin James's Zookeeper came out. Then they're like, Stan, we got tickets for the next Zookeeper movie. Zookeeper. I hear that title, I just think of that little quote from the movie.
Yeah, there's not much to say. I don't know if I'll see this just because I'm not a big fan of the original, but I will say I love Jamie Lee Curtis as an actor.
Yeah, me too, yeah.
And Lindsay Lohan, I'm glad she's back.
I'm glad too, because, I mean, yeah, she should be back.
Yeah, she had some issues here and there, but then she got married, had a kid, and has been living her best life, and now she's like, okay, I'm ready to try getting back into acting. She was an incredibly talented child actor. I mean...
She was, yeah.
The Parent Trap is still one of the most impressive dual performances.
The Parent Trap, yeah, is another classic from, like, the late 90s that I've seen. And
that doesn't get enough credit for how brilliant that movie actually is.
I think the reason why is also because
the tone is very goofy.
The tone is goofy, but I think the other reason is because at that time it was just seen as another remake, because the original, and I gotta be honest, I saw the original, it's not really much to gush over. About. The only thing that is, I guess, technically impressive was the synchronous acting of the actress who's playing the twin and everything. Haley Mills, yeah. You had them in that one dance sequence and them going down the stairs. They had to like cut up the frame. Yes, that's impressive, but
the story itself wasn't all that intriguing.
Yeah, and then I see the Lindsay Lohan one. I gotta be honest, I'm engulfed with that story.
Oh yeah, they make the mom and the dad so lovable
and believable too.
And all the comedy is top tier in that film. Mm-hmm. It's very goofy, but then you think this had to take so much to actually figure out and plan.
Yeah,
and then to actually have that intriguing of a story. Yeah. The fact that even the butlers are interesting people.
Exactly,
in the film.
They got personality. Yeah, again,
the worlds they had personality. The style. I could talk about. Yeah, like
we could gush a little bit about it, but yeah, the reason why it doesn't get talked about enough because it was seen as just another remake, and it's the 90s. We had computers. Of course, we could separate our actresses. Like, okay, yeah, that is an easy hurdle, but
The direction of that film is insanely talented.
The only part of that movie, without going too much into detail, the only part of that movie I don't like is the father's girlfriend when she says, "I'm not a nature girl." I'm like, oh, is this going to be another Willy from Temple of Doom? And
it kind of does, but it does lead to the funniest part of the movie is when they send her out on the air mattress in the lake. I actually laughed my ass off at that. And she says, "You have to make a choice, me or them," and the doesn't hesitate. Them.
It's like, it's like THEM. Them.
Smash cuts away, and they ask, "How'd the trip go? We're grounded for the next century. Starting now."
I'm gonna be that dad at some point. Yeah.
Oh man, I really love that movie.
Yeah.
Oh man, but getting into another one, my brother can talk about this way more than I could.
This is a cult classic that
Tron Ares.
I'm not gonna say I don't like this. I just don't have enough. I don't have enough info compared to what this guy has. So lay on us.
Ben has not seen Tron Legacy,
in like the longest period of time.
Yeah, we'll need to rewatch that. I think I'll have to show you Tron Uprising so you can see how they fleshed out the world from Tron Legacy.
Yeah, I saw some clips of Tron Uprising. I think the animation looks awesome. Yeah.
Oh yeah, it's a very intriguing style and great voice cast, beautiful writing.
Mm-hmm.
But from Legacy we move into Tron Ares. They're officially moving out of the grid. The highly sophisticated master program AI, played by Jared Leto. That's the one staying here.
Uh-oh.
But we have Evan Peters playing, who was Cillian Murphy's role in
Tron
Legacy, where he plays Edward Dillinger Jr.
Mm-hmm.
And this is him coming out. The program's coming out into the real world, and this is an intriguing thing if you know the story of Tron, if you know the way that it's going to.
Mm-hmm.
This is a really beautiful concept that they're going to get to play with.
Yeah.
I love the director. The director of this directed Maleficent, Mistress of Evil, the film that Ben kept warning me about, and when we watched it, I fell in love with it. This director I trust with this. They got everyone involved from the original to make sure that they could give notes onto what was going to happen next.
So there's going to be consistency.
Oh yeah, they're going to keep the continuity while doing what Legacy did, which was a soft reboot that follows the originals.
Yeah.
And
reboot cool, I guess.
Of course, everyone talks about how Daft Punk's score from the original is great, and who is going to replace Daft Punk? They got 9 Inch Nails. Damn. Academy Award winners Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross, who won their Oscars for The Social Network and Soul, and also wrote the music to Girl with the Dragon Tattoo and Mank. They're really great writers. They're the ones doing the music for Tron Ares? Sold. I am sold. We also know that Cameron Monaghan is going to be in there. Jeff Bridges is returning.
Mm-hmm.
No news yet if Bruce Boxleitner is showing back up as Tron.
Yeah.
Because he's Tron. He is a very major part.
Mm-hmm.
I would hope he would.
Yeah.
But this is going to be very interesting because we know Jared Leto plays Ares, a highly sophisticated AI master program who was the villain of the first movie.
Yeah.
And he's sent into the real world for an undisclosed mission.
My
brother and I have gone at lengths thinking about where the story is going to go.
Mm-hmm.
I'll say, I'm anticipating this way more than I thought I was.
Yeah.
The trailer they showed made me go, okay, I'm ready for that. And when they said, 9 Inch Nails is doing the score. Sold.
Nice. I'm intrigued. I think the problem, the thing with me when it came to Tron was, it is a cult classic. And when it comes to me looking at cult classics, I don't mean to be that picky, but it usually has to be something like a genre I'm into, and I do like sci-fi, but I don't know. There was just something about the first movie. I'm just going to be honest. The first movie, I think the first movie looks ugly.
Yeah, not just ugly. It's poorly paced. It's only an hour and a half long, and it feels like 5 hours.
Yeah. No, I will be honest. The second movie may look dark, but at least it's got a visual look that's actually pretty nice to look at.
And then there's lore reasons behind it being that way. It's super cool.
Mm-hmm.
The first Tron, what I say ironically, is that the stuff in the real world is way better looking. It's gorgeous looking. And the fact that there was only one matte painting they used in the whole movie is impressive.
That's actually pretty cool.
And then sure, the technical achievement that it took to make everything in the grid is impressive.
I do like the lifelike stuff.
But it's sadly, I think it's paced pretty poorly because they couldn't cut and do the camera moves that they were doing in the original in the real world, where they could have way more of a style and visual technological advancements. The first Tron's fine. Tron Legacy, while its protagonist he's a bit stock, He's
Jeff Bridges, or not the...
No, Jeff Bridges, Garrett Hedlund's character.
Hedlund, yeah, that guy.
He's not a very intriguing character. Everyone else around him is more intriguing.
Yeah, he's kind of supposed to be the bad boy, or just, not the bad boy, but just like the adventurer who's a bit of a lone wolf.
But the lore they have behind this, the story they have, and Jeff Bridges playing two characters, his older self and his younger self, back when de-aging technology was
not there yet.
Was not there yet, but it kind of made sense for Clue.
Yeah.
Didn't make sense when they were in the real world. We saw him, it was like, ooh, we're not there just yet.
Yeah.
But it is still an intriguing performance from Bridges, and especially with what they're playing. And if you've seen Tron Uprising, you know that there is way more going on.
Gotcha.
That is very intriguing, and also Tron Legacy is one of the most famous ARGs of all time.
Oh yeah.
And the term Flynn lives, there is a reason that exists.
Gotcha.
It's a very cool thing. I think Tron, as a secondhand big fan of Tron, I can see this movie doing really well if they keep up with the continuity while also adding to it.
I'm gonna have to.
And I want it to be good, so that way we can get more Tron stuff.
I'm gonna have to get back into Tron at one point. Maybe when this movie's closing in on its release, because that's something I tend to do.
Legacy and Uprising are the things to watch. The first Tron, if you've seen it, you've seen it. The second one, the Tron Legacy and Tron Uprising are the things to watch, and the comics are even really good that they made.
Yeah, the first Tron movie, again, I know it said it was ugly. I don't know how else I could describe it. It was just like, it felt like reverse rotoscope somehow. I don't know how else to neon rotoscope, which is like, it looked like a cartoon with real people, but I didn't like looking at these people.
We're going to get now into an original live action film from Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson.
Oh boy.
Called Monster Jam.
I don't know much
inspired by monster truck driving event of the same name. And the film is currently filming. That's all we know. They did not talk about the Moana live action remake at all at this time. But hey, I liked Dwayne Johnson, and if he came with an original idea,
great.
Like, I enjoyed the Jungle Cruise movie him and Emily Blunt did. I thought that was fun.
I thought that was fine too, and it was such a shame that director went on to do Black Adam. Jean-Michel Serra, yeah. Yeah,
I can see why Dwayne Johnson wanted to work with him, but clearly that was fun. I would like to see Jean-Michel Serra do a Pirates of the Caribbean movie.
That would actually work in his favor.
Because Jungle Cruise was very much trying to be a Pirates of the Caribbean film. But
I saw more like The Mummy, actually.
Yeah, that one was incredibly fun. I don't know if he's directing this. But that being said, Dwayne Johnson in original projects is always intriguing because he does care about story and the audience, and he wants to always treat his audience to a really fun time.
And he does give it his all, even if it's not, I guess, Oscar-worthy, but he doesn't have to be Oscar-worthy.
And while I don't go to monster truck events, anytime I do, they're so fun.
Yeah.
And the idea of Disney doing a giant monster truck movie with The Rock, that sounds fun.
I've got a funny story, actually, not entirely related to this, but did you ever see that movie Monster Trucks?
Yeah. Yes.
I got in a little bet with my producing professor over that movie doing well at the box office, and then he's like, okay, if the movie does well, you get to... if the movie does well, you won't have to do what I ask of you. If the movie doesn't do well, you have to see at first, because he heard that I'm not the biggest fan of the Despicable Me movies. I don't hate them. It's just like, those are definitely kids movies. At first, he said, you're going to have to see Despicable Me 3. And at first, I actually said, okay. But then he heard about my at the time, hatred for some of the recent Transformers movie, which was Age of Extinction. Then he's like, change that. If you're wrong about this movie, you have to see The Last Night. And I was like, and I was wrong about the movie, so I had to go see The Last Night, and I had to report about it too. I was like, oh.
You walked into a corner because it was a January movie. You should have. Your producing professor knew what was going on. I knew about monster trucks because back when I was working at Flick's Brew House, there was a guy named Debo. I love him to death. He would always say it was an ironic masterpiece. He would talk about how it was the greatest movie ever made. Anytime we talk about like great cinema, he would always say, but none of them beat Monster Trucks.
See, that's kind of how I was viewing the movie. I was like, Monster Trucks could be like the greatest, worst thing ever made, and it could do well.
It was such a mid movie.
Yeah.
That it's been elevated to like goofy, weird cinema from Nickelodeon. Either way, yeah. Monster Jam, Monster Trucks. Monster Truck movies have not done well at the box office. Maybe The Rock can bring them up.
Because he brings in money, yeah.
Now we get into back to Pixar real quick with a couple of their series.
This one I'm not familiar with. Yeah.
So this is their first series they're doing called Win or Lose. It'll introduce us to Pickles, a softball team gearing up for a championship. will ride along with 8 different characters, including insecure kids, helicopter parents, a lovesick umpire, and the Pickles coach, voiced by Will Forte, as they prepare for the game of their lives.
So thank God it's not Mighty Ducks.
What I think is interesting from the trailer that they released, it looks like each episode is going to be in a different animation style to reflect each child.
That's a good idea, yeah.
And from what I heard, it's going to be the same game over... We're going to see the same game from all these different perspectives in animation.
Well, that'd be cool.
And there is the question, how does Pixar do a TV show? How do you make a story?
Well, you've already set the intriguing ballpoint by saying each episode is going to have a different animation style. There's a Ralph Bakshi. He did that quite a bit in most of his movies. Case in point, I haven't seen this movie yet. I asked for it for my birthday. American Pop. Each sequence in a different... It's a movie, just without going too much into plot, it's a movie that surfaces around the evolution of music throughout different eras, from the 40s, 50s, and 60s, and each era is given a different shade of animation. It's not just the same people, but with different music. It's there's a different art style to reflect the time period.
Yeah.
He did something similar in his Lord of the Rings animated movie, which I do recommend people watch. I don't think that movie gets enough attention. He would have moments where when you're in the Hobbit town, it looks like something out of Snow White or freaking Sleeping Beauty. But then when you're out in the wild, he gives like a more pencil-ish, rustic environment. Then when you've got the ring, you've got something abstract.
It's rotoscoped and dark and mysterious.
So that kind of idea of experimentation with different animation from perspectives of children from different, not different, but with varying insecurities, that could work so much to their advantage.
Yeah, and I'm loving that like we talk about the sequels that Pixar is making. We'll get into some of their original stuff they're going to be also creating. We talked about Elio.
Yeah.
We're going to get to another project in a minute. If Inside Out 2 does well and Toy Story 5 and all of them do well to promote projects like Win or Lose and do something cool with them, I'm all for that.
That's fine, yeah.
I'm okay with sequels also taking risks. Like we were talking about, Toy Story 5 looks like they're testing a new animation style.
Yeah.
I'd be okay with that.
That's fine. You don't want to see the
experiment
same thing.
Experiment with your sequels. Get fun with it. And because, movies are supposed to be fun, as Brad Bird points that out. Movies are supposed to be fun, so let them be fun.
There we go.
And so Win or Lose sounds fun, and I like Will Forte a lot. So
yeah, he was great. Wasn't he in the Lady and the Tramp movie as the tramp?
No, that was
Justin Theroux.
That was Justin Theroux.
Why did I think of Will Forte?
No, I know Will Forte as the mean person who was mean to Weird Al in the Weird Al movie.
That's right.
While Weird Al was playing the manager of that movie.
That's right.
God, I love that movie.
That was funny, yeah.
Speaking of which, if we could get a Muppet movie directed by Frank Oz with Weird Al doing the music. That feels like it needs to happen. Anyway, when we get into another Pixar TV show they're going to do called Dream Productions, which will be an Inside Out spin-off about the Dream Factory inside Riley's head.
That has creative potential just slathered all across its idea, like
because the Dream Productions were if it's following Inside Out 2, how do our dreams change as we get older?
Yeah.
And because science of dreams is such an abstract concept to scientists.
Yeah, exactly.
And so how do we do that here? And I'm okay with Inside Out spin-offs being this interesting. Are we going to see... Now the question is, are we going to see the emotions, or is it going to be new characters that are within this place? Is it going to be like a short film each time, or is it going to be serialized?
Are we going to look into the subconscious, like in a different kind of realm or something like that? Subconscious thoughts that should serve as, I guess, executive producers or something like that? That could be interesting.
Yeah, there's a lot of ways that I think creatively, Dream Productions, I'm intrigued. We've already talked about Elio.
Oh, yeah.
Now here we go into Hoppers.
You told me about this one on the way over. It's a weird idea, but hey, I'm all for weird.
So Hoppers it's being directed by We Bare Bears creator Daniel Chong.
Never watched
I love We Bare Bears. It's so good. It is a comfy, cozy show. So beautifully acted, so beautifully animated. It's just a sweet show. Okay. And I highly recommend it. It's a good little just turn on and pick me up type of movie, type of show. And Hoppers introduces us to Mabel, a young girl who transfers her consciousness into a robot beaver in order to learn more about the world of animals.
Huh.
And the voice cast includes John Hamm, Bobby Moynihan, and Piper Curda.
Okay.
So I love this concept. This you can see here. This is the little teaser poster they released. If it looks wild, it looks fun.
It looks 2D from where I'm saying, but that's going to be 3D CG, of course.
It'll arrive in theaters in 2026, so in 2 years, which is a good time. We got Toy Story 5 coming out, like, sometime next year, I want to say.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think for Pixar there is a chance. And again, 2 original projects with 2 sequels announced. Like Incredibles 3 and Toy Story 5.
Yeah.
And then Hoppers and Elio. I'm okay with them.
Yeah, that's fine.
They announced 4 movies, 2 of which are sequels, keeping the story going, and 2 original ideas.
The only time, really, I've rolled my eyes, with the exception, I guess, of Toy Story 4, the only time I really rolled my eyes at a Pixar sequel was Cars 2.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm not going to say Cars 3 sucked. It was just kind of there, and I didn't care about it. Cars 2, that used to be my least favorite, but now it's Lightyear. I'm not going to gush about that, but Cars 2 is once again kind of just there to entertain your kids. Here's something that's
it's either going to be shockingly great,
or it's just gonna fall into standard mid.
Yeah. Mufasa the Lion King. I actually have not seen the trailer.
I saw it once. Yeah,
we're gonna pause real quick so we can check this out. All right, so we just watched. You rewatched the trailer for Mufasa the Lion King. I've got to say, I was not looking forward to this. You guys know I'm a huge Lion King fan. I did not like the 2019.
Yeah.
I even said in the Disney live action remake, I'm not gonna watch Mufasa the Lion King. That trailer may
have swayed you.
May have swayed me.
Yeah.
Because one, I like Barry Jenkins a lot as a filmmaker.
He's a phenomenal filmmaker.
I wasn't the biggest fan of Moonlight, I'm going to admit that, but I adore If Beale Street Could Talk.
If Beale Street Could Talk was the movie I thought he should have gotten the Best Picture nod for me. Yeah.
And his Best Director Oscar, like the way he uses color is so intriguing.
Yeah.
And the way he talked about how he was intrigued for this one because he loved the story of it so much, and he then told his DP, when are we ever going to get the chance to work with this technology? Mm-hmm. And also, we said that like the animals were expressionless, it didn't look pretty.
And it also had the not visual style, but it had the backdrop of like a documentary. It's like, that's not what we wanted from The Lion King, guys.
And here,
this looks more like a fantastical epic.
Yeah, first of all, the lions have way more expression that still feels believable.
Like when they're panting, they still curl up the lips a little more so you could see they're smiling. But when they're angry, you could see them angry.
Yeah, and I'm already kind of intrigued by this idea. Like, again, it doesn't feel like it's breaking canon a little bit.
Just a little, because we've got Pumbaa and Timon, which look like they're in a climactic fire battle. It's like, how are they going to factor into that?
Mm-hmm. But we also have this really intriguing idea of Mufasa and Scar, who were brothers, and how did they fall?
But Mufasa was the outsider, and Scar was the prince to be.
Yeah, so maybe they're going to do some... I'm actually very intrigued on what they can do with that story.
We might have another... I mean, I know this probably...
These albino lions they showed in that trailer...
they were creepy, actually.
They were terrifying. They were very... And... I also, Lin-Manuel Miranda wrote the songs for this. If you're gonna have somebody replace Elton John, and Tim Rice, I might be swayed to see this.
Yeah, but I'm also, I don't know who's doing the music composition again?
I think Hans Zimmer's back.
Well, I'm always gonna listen. I love Hans Zimmer's music, and hearing that da da.
We got Aaron Pierre is going to be voicing Mufasa, which I hear, and I'm like, yeah, I could hear that going to James Earl Jones.
I think,
and then you have Kelvin Harrison Jr., who's playing Taka, who's going to become Scar. I think that is, and so I think they're actually interested in doing some interesting things here. And if Barry Jenkins read this story and read the script and said, I actually want to tell that story.
I mean, yeah, hopefully he didn't get a lot of notes that compromise the movie, but at the very least, it looks like he committed to something that's going to be different.
There were moments that were actually genuinely funny in this trailer.
Yeah.
Like, I'm actually sitting here like, I might actually decide to check this out.
Yeah.
Which, that's the job of a trailer. It's supposed to make you do that.
I might see this, of course, with the right people, but yeah, I don't want to
Visually speaking, though, we were talking about that documentary style. It looks like that a Planet Earth documentary in a gorgeous way.
Yes.
It really feels like they went with that and did this beautiful thing. There's some shots in the snowy mountains that they showed that I literally went, oh my gosh.
Yeah, they're going all out with what they can explore with. This is an epic, whereas the first movie, I mean...
It was an animation test.
It was an animation test, which, yeah, it went on to go on to do better things, but... Yeah, kind of.
If this is the thing that goes on to do better, it would be amazing if this was a live-action remake sequel that
was better than the first one.
Well, because this one, at tier, you can only get up And if this one can climb up there, I will be very impressed.
This is kind of like what happened with, you don't watch a whole lot of horror movies, but have you heard of the movie Ouija?
Yes.
Yeah, we had that movie, and it's as basic as any kind of Ouija board horror movie
and
gets.
Then Mike Flanagan did the sequel.
Came in and did
the
prequel, so that's kind of like what we got here. So same thing happened with the Annabelle movies. We get the first Annabelle, which was directed by James Wan's cinematographer, John Leonetti, who... This is the only other piece of work I know him from. Mortal Kombat Annihilation. Yes, he directed that.
Interesting.
So it's funny to say Annabelle's his better project, but we go from Annabelle and we get
Annabelle Creation
from David F.
Which
Sandberg,
was a prequel from David F. Sandberg.
Which was great. So it's like Disney, and maybe they took notes. So
if they took notes and made a better film, great.
Yeah.
I kind of am wanting to see this now.
I do want to hear, and I'm a Hans Zimmer, sucker. I love his music, and this, if I can hear that Lion King music again,
and even if it's not him, whoever did the music did such a good job.
You really did a good job emulating his.
And I'm a huge Lin-Manuel Miranda fan. I'm always going to be intrigued to see what he does. If you can make these characters I didn't like in the original suddenly intriguing, I'm in. All the power to you.
There we go.
I mean, Barry Jenkins did compare this movie. He said it was very much, he took inspiration from Godfather Part 2 to make this movie.
Oh, man.
Which is, our favorite movie.
That is a very tall order.
Well, he said that's what he was inspired by to make it.
Of course, yeah. So, but I've heard that quite a bit for a few other projects. Case in point, Age of Ultron, I heard was inspired by Godfather 2. I watched that movie. I'm like,
kinda.
I can kind of see what you're trying to go for.
More like Deadpool and Wolverine was inspired by planes, trains, and automobiles, and you can feel it.
I felt that, yeah.
But yeah, with this trailer, I'm feeling that epic grand scale, and I'm like, okay, Barry Jenkins with a big budget collaborating with Disney on a big studio film.
It could work.
This could work. I am intrigued by the trailer. I may check it out. I may wait to see how the reviews are doing, what people are saying.
If we could do audio effects, I would have that voice recording of Gene Wilder going, "It could work!"
So we then get back into Marvel with Ironheart. I will say, Wakanda Forever does not get enough credit for how brilliant of a film that is.
Here's the thing about Wakanda Forever, y'all. Yes, we lost Chadwick Boseman, and here's the thing. They had just finished writing that script right when he had died, and the fact that they had to rework the script from the ground up to compensate for that, not even compensate, but support how it would work in the overall story and who would become Black Panther. There's some things in the movie I wasn't the biggest
And of course,
fan
we had to set up Riri Williams, who I thought was played very well by Dominique Thorne.
Yeah.
And we have her show coming out with a villain called Parker Robbins, otherwise known as the Hood, played by Anthony Ramos.
Nice.
This is also a show starring Alden Ehrenreich, Lyric Ross, Matthew Elam, N.G. White, Manny Montana, and Shea Coulee.
I don't know too many of those folks, with the exception of Alden Ehrenreich. Here's what I'll say about him, though. I know some of us may not have been the biggest fans of Solo. He probably didn't make it or make the cut for Solo for some of us. But here's what I'm going to say, just to get a little more support for the guy. If the Coen brothers thought he was good, then surely there's something there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think for Ironheart, I'm intrigued to see... Again, I just want a good story with this character. I liked Riri fine enough that if she can carry her own show... I didn't like the design of the actual suit itself.
I didn't like it either, and to be honest, I was a little... Maybe this was just the Marvel fatigue setting in for me. I was like, I don't like that. We're setting her up just so we could have a show based off of her. But if we're going to get a good show, who might complain?
Yeah, I think I think I see it going to be potentially good. I honestly, after seeing that Mufasa trailer, I'm kind of sitting here like, man, I want my epics now.
Oh yeah, me too. Well, speaking of epics, mild epics, we got
Andor Season 2, which they haven't confirmed when it'll come out, but we know it'll be a 12-episode season. Oh man, thank you, Disney. We also know that K2SO is returning, played by Alan Tudyk.
Well, I don't know
Thank you.
Okay, returning, but he's going to finally make his appearance.
Yeah, and then Ben Mendelsohn is back as Krennic.
Oh, wow. We saw the Death Star being designed.
And so Andor the Season 2 will follow him over a 3-year period as he becomes the leader of the Resistance, aka the Rebellion. And it's funny, my family does not want to watch Andor. My brother watched the first 3 episodes. He said he was done.
I showed it to my sister. Yeah.
My dad doesn't want to watch Andor because he knows where the character ends up. He actually doesn't like... He says Rogue One is a technically brilliant film, but he doesn't like to watch films if he knows where the characters are going to end up. That's not intriguing to see how they got there.
Okay,
so for me, Andor was is like a show that I enjoy in my house because everybody was into it.
I understand where your folks are coming from, and I've dealt with so many people saying the same thing about not just Andor, but even with the Star Wars prequels and just other things like House of the Dragon or X-Men First Class. I hear so many of the same arguments like, what's the point of watching this if we know where these folks are going to wind up? It's like, can we just get that notion that prequels are bad out of our head just because we know where they're going to end up? We don't always know what's going to happen. Yeah. How did we get there? That's what's intriguing.
For my dad, he knows that. That's not something that intrigues him. For me, and I can get that, but for me, Andor was a surprise.
That was the grounded Star Wars. That was the dark, gritty Star Wars show. And when I say dark, gritty, I mean like it was grounded in an environment that felt natural.
K2SO is probably the best droid in the entire franchise.
Oh god, yeah. But we also
I am a huge Ben Mendelsohn fan. Mm-hmm. Him returning as Krennic with Tony Gilroy's dialogue.
Yeah.
Oh.
And that's the ironic thing. Like, we should probably talk about Tony Gilroy for just a quick moment. Tony Gilroy was brought in to do some reshoots, I believe.
He reshot the finale of Rogue One. Now, this is where I don't agree with Gilroy because Gareth Edwards makes it clear that they were collaborators on it.
Yeah.
Gilroy says, no, it was all me with Rogue One. And that's where I have to disagree. Because Gareth Edwards' style and tone is all over Rogue One. Yeah. And it's his vision that does intrigue it. And he acknowledged he couldn't do the final act and was okay with Gilroy taking over.
He did, yeah. He was very
I'm more annoyed at Gilroy for not acknowledging what Gareth Edwards did.
And he actually throws him under the bus, saying, like, he didn't know what he was doing, so that's why he had to bring me on board. He said that somewhere in a podcast. And here's where the ironic thing comes in. He claimed that his greatest strength when it came to making Rogue One, as he put it, was that he wasn't a Star Wars fan.
Yeah, well, and when he pitched Andor, he was actually told, you have to know Star Wars before we make this.
Yeah, it's kind of amazing he pitched it at all, seeing that, he wasn't a Star Wars fan.
But he brought in, and I think partially with him not being a Star Wars fan, that led him to do a different take on it.
Yeah.
I think Andor Season 1 is still... I mean, there is a reason it got nominated for, everything under the sun.
It is the strongest, yeah. I really liked Ahsoka, but that's just me gushing over a character I really like, but I will acknowledge Andor is the strongest we've ever gotten of Star Wars.
I mean, it got Emmy and WGA and DGA nominations for its direction and its writing.
Yeah.
Surprisingly, Andy Serkis and Stellan Skarsgård did not get nominations for their performances.
Stellan Skarsgård's little speech, and of course, Andy Serkis's speech.
Serkis, I felt, deserved it for his performance as the prison warden, who's also a prisoner.
Yeah, that was
what a performance from him.
And that was the intriguing thing. Not intriguing thing. That was the best thing about the show was, he's in prison. Oh man, we're gonna be stuck here now and not go forward. But no, they established we're working. We don't like to work. Yeah, that's as basic as it gets, but I don't want to spoil it anymore because if I talk about it, we'll be here for a while longer. Yeah.
What we'll say is I'm excited for Andor Season 2.
Me too.
I love Alan Tudyk. He's one of my favorite actors working today.
Oh, he's amazing. Yeah. I can't wait to see him or hear him in Creature Commandos.
Yeah, that'll be cool. And then jumping in to, I think they're going to change the title at some point, The Mandalorian and Grogu.
Okay, so Mom and Dad, if you're watching this, so sorry, but yes, Grogu winds up back with Mando at some point. I will not say when, but yeah.
We know it's directed by Jon Favreau, so good. We know it's following Pedro Pascal and his apprentice Grogu as they're going around. We know the Razor Crest has somehow returned.
That'll be awesome.
And then Zeb from Star Wars Rebels is back.
Oh, Zeb is the best character of that show, next to Hera. Yeah.
And they're facing AT-AT walkers on a snowy planet, possibly Hoth. And we don't know much about this movie, but I will say...
The less, the better.
The less, the better.
Until the trailer comes out, of course.
I want to see what cool story you're going to do, and if you're setting up Heir to the Empire, which we know is what they're building to. Mm-hmm. What all the shows are building to is Heir to the Empire, which... Yeah. Okay.
Heir to the Empire, for those who don't know, who aren't that big into the EU, Heir to the Empire follows the story of Thrawn as he is in control of the Empire. Case in point, Heir. Yeah.
Yep,
Grand Admiral Thrawn,
Admiral Thrawn, he comes back after years of a powerful conquest only to find the Empire has died. The Emperor has been dead, and so he takes back over control. Mm-hmm. And he attempts to reclaim the galaxy.
Yes.
And so Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau have said they know the story, where it's going, and everything is building to... Because Thrawn, at the end of Ahsoka Season 1, spoilers, he returned, but so did Ezra, while some characters are trapped in the universe he was trapped in. Mm-hmm. And so now... we have and we were actually talking about this on the way here. Sean Levy is working on a Star Wars movie.
It better be this one.
I want him to direct Heir to the Empire.
Yeah, and my other thing I will say is a couple things. One, we have the First Order with the sequel trilogy. We didn't get much of an explanation as how that formed. Is Thrawn starting up the First Order?
Did Thrawn take it and then Snoke just snuck in and took it over?
Yeah. To be fair, actually, now that you were saying that, I kind of wish that the undead, Imperial Army, I kind of wish those were the bad guys in the sequel trilogy. Yeah. That would have been more intriguing.
Either way, we're finally now on to the last of this.
Which is,
I am
happy.
Beyond excited. Percy Jackson Season 2, which has been filming, which is the greatest thing to hear.
Yes.
Coming out next year, and it's doing, of course, The Sea of Monsters, one of the coolest books in the franchise. Of course, Walker Scobell is back. Leah Sava Jeffries and Arian Samardi are back. We also, just earlier today, we got an announcement of who's playing Tantalus, which is going to be exciting. We also got Tyson. For those of you who don't know Percy Jackson, I'm sorry if you don't know this.
Look, here's the thing. Rick Riordan, he's a Texan, so we really, really gushed over this guy at some point in our childhoods. And of course,
we get the intense chariot ride is gonna finally happen.
He's our, I guess he's our J.K. Rowling somewhat, yeah.
Oh, I hope not.
Oh, God, why did I say that? He's, okay, antithesis. Yeah, let's say that, yeah.
Oh, man. But for Riordan's work, I'm very excited. I know James Bobbin is back he's still executive producing. I think he's directing an episode, which he directed the first episode of the show.
Yeah.
Which is like the most important episode to direct.
Of course, yeah.
Because you're establishing tone, style, and
my only issue with that first series is, it takes a little while to get started, but hey, so did the book.
Yep.
So, yeah.
And again, Sea of Monsters is one of the coolest things. The Siren section where Annabeth wants to listen to the Siren song, and Percy tries to tie her up so she can't hear it. So she can listen to it to unlock some wisdom. But then she disappears, and man, is it going to be heartbreaking.
Yeah.
We also know that they're already casting for every villain that's going to be setting up, and I am very excited.
My one little question that I do have is, what are we going to do for Zeus? Because last season, without giving too much into spoilers, but if you've read the book, this isn't too much of a spoiler.
Lance Reddick played him.
We see Zeus in season 1. Yes, Lance Reddick played him, and this man unfortunately passed away last year.
And I believe season 1 was actually his last project to come out.
Next to John Wick 4.
Next to John Wick 4.
And Hellboy, Web of Weird.
And Hellboy, yeah.
Yeah, so with that said, but here's the out that they have. These are the Greek gods. They do take on different forms.
Well, in the book, they even say the gods can take on any form they desire.
So we have that out to give them.
And there's a number of actors, I think, who can take on, like, Keith David is taking over one of Lance Reddick's roles in a video game he was in.
Oh, wow, okay. So...
And there's a couple of actors, like, I think you could get Idris Elba for this. I know Zeus wasn't in the Sea of Monsters.
He wasn't, I don't think so, yeah.
So you have a while until we see Zeus again.
Exactly.
But it is a very tragic thing that happened. But I will say the cast is once again great. Walker Scobell's voice has dropped more, so I'm like, yep, there he is, there's Percy.
There we go.
And I am very intrigued. But yeah, from this D23, what can I say? I'm back on the Disney hype train.
I'm kind of on there too. We didn't tackle so much of the Marvel animation stuff because that's a lot of other things to look over. But so I'll just briefly go on and say X-Men 97 was awesome. So if you really liked it, then yeah, I'm just as excited for season 2 as much as y'all.
And, I mean, Marvel Zombies sounds intriguing.
And Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man, is that
Yep, that's being in progress. We know the guy whose Tom Holland's voice double is playing
What If, yeah.
And so I'm very intrigued to see what they're doing. And they also announced for Marvel Animation that they don't have a set style. They're going to go with the style that the project requires.
That's awesome.
I love hearing that from Marvel, saying we are not going to have a set in-house style. It's going to be, what does the show require of us?
Kind of going back to what I was saying about Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness. Yeah, it has an identity. So yeah, same thing here. Each show is going to have its own personal identity. It's not going to feel all interconnected within the same thing. Because yeah, that could get tiresome after a while.
Yeah, for D23, is there a project that you're most anticipating that you're intrigued by?
If I'm more anticipating of the shows, it's a draw between Andor Season 2 and Daredevil Born Again.
Good choices.
But of the movies, I'm going to say, let's see, Mufasa was intriguing enough, but I'm going to have to go with Incredibles 3.
That's intriguing. I'm going to say my most anticipated is Fantastic Four.
Yeah,
I think Fantastic Four First Steps, but the most surprising one is Mufasa. I was not expecting to be like, I might actually see that.
Yeah, I was actually on the bit of, I don't know if I'm going to see that. But now I'm looking at the trailer and I'm reminding myself, oh, Barry Jenkins did this. But yeah, we already talked about that.
Yeah, and we've gotten past that story hurdle of like, well, didn't they say this and this? Well, it's like, oh, are they going to answer that?
Yeah.
Intriguing. Is it actually from a certain point of view type of deal? Either way, D23 this year, I think, got me on a hype train. I'm disappointed they didn't announce Shang-Chi 2.
Announce what now?
Shang-Chi 2.
Oh, Shang-Chi. I thought you said Jumanji 2. I was like,
no.
What?
Shang-Chi 2, because I love the original. I'm
the
shocked they have not
yeah.
announced the second one either this at San Diego Comic-Con or this one.
Yeah.
Especially considering that Daniel Destin Cretton left original King Dynasty to direct Shang-Chi 2.
Yeah.
So I'm curious why that's not been announced, or why, unless it's going to be like a surprise release type of thing.
Yeah, and I bet some folks are a little disappointed that we haven't gotten more of an update for Blade, but I'm worried about that one personally.
I think what they should do after seeing Deadpool and Wolverine, we should just get a Wesley Snipes Logan-style Blade movie.
Yeah, that's exactly what we should do, because Mahershala Ali is already getting infuriated with all the delays from what I heard.
And why not? I mean, if Wesley Snipes is like, there's going to be only one Blade, they can easily step back. Mahershala Ali could step back and say, you know what? Yeah.
I mean, if Wesley Snipes was willing to step back but come back, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, well, he got in jail for tax.
That too.
For tax fraud. So there was a reason he was gone.
Well, yeah, but
a very good legal reason.
But when Mahershala Ali was announced, he still was willing enough to say, yeah, good choice, y'all. But now he's back. He came back as Blade for that moment. Spoilers for Deadpool and Wolverine. But yeah, Blade is that one. Why is it so hard to get something so cool moving, man? It's the film industry, that's why.
Yeah, but with D23, I'm intrigued. I actually have a little bit of hope for Disney's future.
I do too.
I'm okay with the sequels rebuilding to remind us why we love Disney so much.
And there's sequels to movies we did love, and of course they have a plan. Case in point, what we said was Zootopia. Yeah.
And it's not like they didn't announce original stuff that actually is intriguing and beautiful. So yep, that's all we have for you guys. Head on over to Instagram and let us know what you think. What D23 announcement got you the most excited. Disney. And next time we'll be back. We don't know when, but the next time we'll be back, we are going to sit down and discuss the summer blockbuster movie season. How we felt about it, what we feel going forward, because this was an awkward year for film.
A bit awkward coming off of 2023, but a little better, I might say. But that's something we'll cover in the episode.
Until then, we will see y'all later.
Bye-bye.